We'll go ahead and get started. We're gonna have a work session here first regarding the West Harrisville Road Project. I'm assuming that we want to have somebody get up and say a few words before we start asking questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Cody Peterson. I'm with the consultant firm that Harrisville City has hired, ESI Engineering. I'm the project manager. And then we brought a team tonight to help answer the questions. I'll be answering any questions that have to do with the design of the roadway. That's kind of my part. And then we have Matt Peterson here who helped us to establish the existing right of way. So any questions on that? And then with us is Carrie, who's doing our public involvement. So she's been out trying to contact residents, letting them know what's going on in layman's terms and not engineer drawings per se. And then we have Shannon Wixom here, who's helping us do well, it's right-of-way acquisition, but it's really just a way to help pay the neighbors for temporary construction easements on their property where we're going to tie in driveways. And that's what, if there's any questions on the acquisition of those temporary construction easements, she'll be able to answer those questions. We're excited to be here to help explain the project. And so we were told that we can start with a little presentation about the right-of-way first, or we can get into questions, however you would like to do it.
Let's have a presentation first, and we'll see where we're going from there, because you might have more questions after you're done.
That's yeah. Hopefully not, but yes. Thank you. Okay, Matt.
Okay. So this road is very old. It got its beginnings as a territorial road, and back then, oh, is it not over there?
Okay. Do you want me to move that out of the way so you can see a little better?
I can push that in. Yeah, let's rotate it.
No.
Yeah, but why don't you watch it?
No.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect, Tim.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. Okay, so this, and back then they realized they needed to record these county roads. And so this is the actual deed for the county road to set the right of way in 1885. And it is a record of the county court of Weaver County. And the part I've got highlighted is it's a description of the county road, 6 rods wide, leading from Shaw's store in Lynn, northwestward through Harrisville to the hot springs. And so 6 rods is 99 feet. That's the width of the county road as established by this document. And it existed that way until 1961, and it currently exists that way. In 1961, UDOT had a highway project where they came through and improved a portion of that county road. And in that 1961 project, UDOT only occupied an 80-foot right of way. And they acknowledged this on the first page of their plans. They have the existing right-of-way line noted, and then they have their project right-of-way line noted, both on the north and south lines of the road. So they have their project right-of-way line was 80 feet. The existing right-of-way line was the county width of 99 feet. And You can see they've got 40 and 40 marked, you know, this is a section that within our project. They have the right-of-way lines marked as 40/40, but that is for their project, for the UDOT project. And, that highway existed, I'm not sure when, it ceased to be a UDOT, UDOT controlled highway, probably when Highway 89 and I-15, started and were being utilized, and this was no longer a major north-south thoroughfare. And I've supplied all of this documentation to UDOT Region 1 and also the UDOT complex to the right-of-way manager of the UDOT complex. And they both agree with me that if a county has a 99-foot right-of-way and UDOT occupies 80 feet of that right-of-way for their highway, it does not extinguish the county right to 99 feet. And so that would remain. These are the Weber County plat maps. These are all available through the Weber County website. This one is from 1972. And it shows, sorry, let me zoom in here real quick. It shows a 49.5-foot width for the road. In all instances of the road, 49.5-foot half width, which would be half of the 99 feet. And as we progress, this is also from 1972. This is in our project. This is right by the railroad. They both have 49.5 feet, equaling the 99-foot width. And the plat maps for the county show that width all the way to 1996. So these are the plat maps from 1996, and they show 49.5 feet on both sides, equaling a 99-foot right of way. So it's nothing new. It's been there for all of the years. This is 1972 to 1996 is well after the highway was occupying that 80 feet. And so things seem to fit very well. And as I did the research for this, let me zoom in here. We found that most of the properties fit that 99-foot. When you enter them in off of the section corner that they call to, all of these properties fit very well to that 99-foot line. North and south. There are a few outliers. There's some that call to the center of the road. There's some that still call to the center of the road, but we did some research in the abstract of those parcels, and there were deeds that have been recorded historically that transfer the property, and the deed says less anything in the county road. But the GIS of the county may or may not have taken that into consideration when they built their map. But it is in the record. So where we couldn't find that happened, we left the properties going to the middle of the road, as you can see in some of those instances. In other instances, you can see where properties go to the 40-foot line or somewhere close to that. I'm going to talk about just a couple of those. One of them being the Allen property. You can see here that it extends probably close to where the 40-foot or 80-foot right-of-way line would be. And the other one being one that's not, part of this project because it's on the north side of the road, but it still shows that property extending beyond that right-of-way line. And to understand how some of these things happen, and a lot of these a lot of these extensions happen just because people are trying to figure things out and trying to clarify. Because, you know, you have this UDOT road that goes in and causes confusion, from the 99-foot line to the 80-foot line. And, obviously people are definitely occupying over both lines, you know. And so people are trying to figure things out, and they hire private surveyors to help them establish that stuff. And, you know, I myself, if I were doing a private survey on one of these, I would definitely pull existing surveys. I would pull things that were close to that. And if the next survey says 40 feet, I'll probably go with 40 feet. Just because, you know, that client is paying you to look at their property. But unfortunately, that property is just one piece of the puzzle. Where we're doing a big project like this, we actually have to look at the entire puzzle. And so you the entire puzzle together, you can start to see where some of these things happen. And so I'll show you just two of these. In the case of the Allen property, we have a deed from 1980 that has a legal description that places the Allen property as shown in this yellow square. You can see their property line on the south doesn't quite fit, but you can see on the right-of-way line, it fits our 99-foot right-of-way line exactly. Then in 2005, a survey was completed for the property behind it. And as part of that survey, they acknowledged this line being off because they had a concrete wall built and they wanted to fix that. So this says concrete wall, new boundary line by boundary line agreement. So they created a new, they created a boundary line agreement and created a new description for this piece of property. And when they wrote that new description, you can see on their survey, they assumed the right-of-way line to be 8 feet in width, or the right-of-way to be 8 feet in width. And so their new description, which is in this new deed from 2011, right here, puts the property over the line of the 40-foot mark. And, you know, they fixed the problem with the wall in the back, but they rewrote the description to encroach, not encroach, but overlap that, that 99-foot line. So that's how problems like that kind of happen as we go along. This other example on the north side of the road, there's Everett's Estate subdivision. It was created in, it was created in, I keep switching on me, in 1994. And you can see the original surveyor who created this subdivision assumed a 99-foot right-of-way width at 49.5 feet on both sides. For whatever reason, they amended the subdivision in 2023. I think pursuant to another boundary line agreement between two of the people, but as part of this subdivision amendment, they assumed 40 feet and extended these extended the property lines out into the up to the 40-foot mark. And you can see even on one side they have a record distance of 8410, and they have a their new distance of 8917. So they've added 5 feet here. So it is less than the 9.5 that we're talking about, but all these encroachments aren't exactly even. It's just dependent on, how these legal descriptions are written and how they fit. So problems like that, have happened. And that's why we have some of these encroachments or overlaps into the right of way. We've tried to, mitigate those as best we can with the project and clean a lot of that stuff up. And I think people are trying to kind of correct, the gap between the highway and the historic county road right of way. But the bottom line is you can't acquiesce against the government. And so there's no way, I cannot find, through all my research, any instance of the county deeding any property back to the homeowners, for that 9.5 foot gap between those. Everything that I've seen and everything that I've pulled out shows that, historically, all the deeds line up with the 99 foot. And, there have not been any deeds or anything recorded that, makes it to be 80 feet. And so that's why we stay with the 99 foot. And I, like I said, I've talked to UDOT Region 1 and the complex, UDOT complex, and they both agree with my assessment of 99 feet. They both agree with me that even though UDOT occupied an 80-foot right of way width through the center of this county road right of way for a time, that doesn't necessarily, cede anything back to the property owners until a valid recorded document does so. And so that's basically it for my research and for how we came up with the right of way.
Okay. You guys have some questions for?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yes.
excuse me, being, is that working?
Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of giving Harrisville informed as far as settlement in 1850. And it wasn't until 1870, after the Railroad Act, that people trying to make sure they made their claims, so the railroad would take those sections as part of their establishment. And then it's not till 1885 when the state territory comes in to then declare this as a road. Is there anything in your research that shows that those people who own these properties prior to that time, from 1850 to 1885, were compensated for the property that this was overlaid on, that the territory actually acquired the rights from the property and the landowners for that 99 feet?
Not that I've found. I haven't seen anything for that yet, as far as deeds transferring, from the county. Because back then, when they would do the territorial roads, a lot of the people would, they'd say they own to the middle of the road, but we have this right of way, the county right of way. And that's a lot of the cleanup that we do as part of UDOT right of way projects, is cleaning some of that stuff up. And so the people aren't paying property taxes on that property that goes out in the middle of the road. But no, I haven't seen anything in my research that shows that that anybody historically was transferred that property to the county. I can go back and look, typically on these properties, as we research to make sure that there's a clear warranty deed that they do own the property. And that's UDOT standard is, let's make sure if we're gonna pay people for property or easements or whatever, let's just make sure they own the title free and clear. And typically that's as far as our research goes, is just to make sure that the current occupant owns the property. There's no reason to go way back and figure out if a pioneer was compensated for for that property. We just want to make sure that they own the property free and clear before we pay them for easements and that.
So State Territory Road, UDOT Road, County Road, is it now a Harrisville City Road?
I believe it is now in Harrisville City jurisdiction, is that correct?
And I believe it's when the city incorporated,
Hmm.
I believe. I mean, we incorporated in what, 1960?
3 or 2 or whatever it was.
Right, and I'm not 100% sure, but my assumption is that UDOT was aware that the county had a 99-foot right of way. But when UDOT came in to build a highway, they decided that they didn't want to maintain all 99 feet. And they just went with the minimum county road requirement, which was 80 feet, I believe at the time. And so I think they just said, we'll just go with the minimum because that's all we want to maintain. We'll occupy that for a while. You know, and then after it ceased to be a UDOT road. I don't know when it went from county to city, but now, I believe it's the city jurisdiction.
So, I have a question about, because I know that this going historically, there's a lot of things that have obviously transpired and there's been differences in records, but, as I was, researching this along with some of the other citizens that are concerned, we talked to the Weber County surveyor, and they said, although we show that there's a line there hasn't been anything permanently there, and he talked about that was likely filed under RS 2477. Does that sound, that this is a correct assumption of that road being road revised statute 2477 of a historic, granting of highways on federal lands?
Yeah,
And that's, because those roads were pretty well guaranteed that. He brought up a point that, if that's the rule that we're pulling this under, and I just want to understand how this may, reconcile, there, in 1976, there was a repealing of that through the Federal Land Policy and Management Act, which meant that if there hadn't have been a road that was 99 feet wide up to that point, that now, and it had to have been shown that it was used that way and permanently recorded, that went away. So I'm just trying to understand what's right and what's not. So can you help us figure that out?
We can look into it. I'm not familiar with that, that you have, but, we can certainly look into it. To my knowledge, I haven't found anything that suggests either way on that one.
Yeah, because I think that'd be very important, because it would probably cause some of these lines we're talking about to be probably not accurate. If it were true, it would be the 80 foot probably rather than the 99.
Yeah, I have not, in my experience, seen any time that a county road that exists, on record, be automatically reverted to whatever is used. I haven't seen that yet in my experience. Usually we have to kind of clean that up ourselves when we're writing all the deeds for UDOT projects. But I can certainly look into it.
Yeah, that would have. He pointed us to the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 76.
Okay.
So I think that would be an important thing, because if that were the case, I think these lines might be not accurate.
Who did you talk with, so we can?
The Weber County surveyor, I got his name, I just have to look it up.
Is that Vahi?
Give me just a second, I'll have it for you. It's in my notes, I have a lot of notes. Steve Collier.
Oh, okay. I think I went up and visited with him as well, and he was the one who kind of pointed me at, this deed. help me find it and show this right away. So, I can certainly, I'll give him a call too.
Yeah, I think that's good, because I want to make sure that it's reconciled.
Yeah,
I have one question. So if you go west of the railroad track, city. I mean, I'm assuming, I went out and measured that road this morning. Going further, like headed towards far west.
yeah, I don't actually have, I just have here,
But anyway, that roadways. I didn't go sidewalk to sidewalk, but I went curb to curb and it was like 67 feet.
yeah,
I'm wondering like, so that road, from my understanding, is still in the county because it's split between Ogden City and Harrisville. That's not accurate.
Where were
We
you talking?
maintain it
Yes.
West side of
All the way.
Utah.
To 1200.
All the way up to
to 1200, okay. Anyway, that road, I took like 4 measurements. Going down that road and it's all 80 feet.
yeah, from curb to curb.
Well, curb to curb is 67.
Oh,
And
back
then,
sidewalk to
and
back
there's
sidewalk.
some places that didn't have curb, it didn't have sidewalks, so I was kind of lining it up with whatever was there. But it would lend me to believe that that whole road there is also 80 feet, and if that continues to extend down, then it's a much bigger bigger
Yeah.
pathway, and will have a huge impact on all of the residents down there. And then my concern is if that's staying at 80 feet, and then this one turns to 99 feet, and then the roadway coming onto Highway 89 is also 80. Because it doesn't look like that's gonna extend past North Harrisville Road. Is that accurate?
Well, there's one thing,
Man, where it
Yeah.
goes from West Harrisville past north,
Right,
that little chunk that connects to 89.
right,
but there's the right of way, but then there's the improvements, right? Because we're not utilizing the entire right of way for the improvements. So but yeah, the improvements that you're referring to, Mayor, we tie back into the existing road over by, just on the other side of North Harrisville Road, by the church. Because we didn't need the whole center lane right there. So we tie those improvements back in before that, but like further down, I don't know about the right of way west of the railroad, but yeah, the improvements are built to what you would typically see for like an 80 or 84 foot right of way. The improvements are built that way, but like even in our project, we're not utilizing the entire 99 foot right of way for the improvements.
That doesn't mean it's not there.
Right, exactly.
west of the railroad, there, I did look at, there's a few, kind of recorded subdivisions or properties on the north and south side of the street. And just measuring from their property lines, I think I got like 102 feet. And then if you go west from there, on the north side of the street and start looking at the deed descriptions, they all describe, so many feet south and so many feet west of the section corner to the center line of Harrisville Road, and then 49.5 feet to the like southerly, southwesterly corner of this property, and then they describe it. So all of those properties there's a few along the north side, west of the tracks that have that in the, they have the 49.5 feet actually in the legal description.
So can I ask, what kind of supersedes all, regardless of something's repealed or somebody paid a pioneer for some land, or do we go back to the plat and what's on the legal deed? I mean, what supersedes what we can do?
Yeah, in my experience and just from talking to, from the contacts that I have at UDOT, they seem to believe that the county road description that we have would be the ultimate, definition of where that is. Other than that, I'll have to look into this other thing, the repealment of that and see if that carries any weight with this. But, other than that, I believe that will be the superseding factor.
So regardless of if it was repealed, then, you know, what would go back to is that document.
No, not necessarily, because if this were the case, the way that it's been described is that the ownership of that land would not be a public right of way, would therefore need to be purchased. It would not be just granted to be used.
Right. That and I, you know, I'll need to also dig into, looking all the way back into the record to see if a lot of these properties, because the properties that are described, most of them fit the 99-foot anyway. And so it's not like we're gonna be paying all these residents, all these people. I mean, most of their deeds fit within that 99-foot anyway. And so, it's not really that much of a concern. Most of these, pieces that go over are a result of things that happened after. People rewriting legal descriptions to try to, you know, try to utilize or figure out why, the right-of-way line is, you know, kind of within the property that's being, used or, you know, kind of out into that. And so I don't see that would be a kind of a huge concern, because like I say, most of it fits within the 99-foot.
And when we're talking numbers, there's 15 properties along here, 10 of them match the 99-foot right of way.
Right. 10 of them match, and, the others are either, you know, to the center line and just not lessed out in the deed, or like I've shown you before, like, these other properties here, where they've kind of tried to adjust things and written new legal descriptions that kind of go over that line. But if you go back historically, a lot of these, fit the 99-foot very well.
So, I mean, as you're trying to clean it up, are you gonna clean up the north side as well? Or not really approach those?
This project is only for the south side, so we haven't done any type of deed work or anything on the north side.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just wanted to make sure, I know that we have a canal that runs through there. What's being, taken into account regarding some of the canal water? And the
I don't think there's a canal.
Well,
Irrigation line. Irrigation line.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, in terms of right of way, are you asking, or just?
what's to be done with it? Is it, what's the plans regarding?
Yeah, let's switch the route. As far as the irrigation ditch right now, we're just designing to make sure that everyone gets their water. So all the connections will be remade, that kind of thing.
So
Well,
there,
yeah, so really, it shouldn't change.
will it be relocated in this design or keep the same location?
Yeah, so we're kind of mulling through that right now. It looks like it would be best to be relocated rather than, because where it sits now would be about under the sidewalk or underneath the curb and gutter, just in the asphalt portion of the roadway.
right, depends on where you're at. It's worse
Depending on
when you get to
where you're
the
at.
east. As you get to the west, it gets further away, right?
Yeah, so then some of the parts on the west, farther west side are behind the sidewalk. So we won't mess with those parts.
Yeah, those are irrigation laterals that have their turnout out of the western canal, you know, further north, and then work their way down across West Harrisville Road in a couple spots, and then go parallel with the road.
So, are you gonna do a presentation, or is this kind of just discussion and question and answer, how?
I'm Heidi.
I know, how long does it speak?
We can, I mean, we can jump into whatever you guys want to talk about. If you want to talk about the design and how we came up, because I know there were some questions about the the improvements and the width and how we arrived on that, we could jump into that if we want.
Well, maybe I can ask you some questions and then that can lead to your discussion on the design itself.
Yeah, that'd be good. We should have a,
I won't know. Now I can see you.
Let's just Google Maps and let's see. Do you want to get, well, cause we can get into, let's see.
Well, that's a good one right there.
Well, this right here, yeah, to start with, I wanted to show like on this, that's when we're talking about widths. So I know I brought this up in the last meeting, but all the master plans that have been completed since 2010 have identified, classified this road as either minor arterial or major collector, which is the same thing, just however you want to call it. And in all three of the master plans that have been completed by transportation consultants, they've all classified it as that and then also recommended this project. So recommended this project, West Harrisville Road being widened to 3 lanes from the existing 2 lanes. I wanted to bring up, this is our city standard. It shows the different road widths, a minor arterial, our standard right of way width for that is 84. The asphalt width is 60 feet. What we're working, okay, so that's 60 feet. I'll just show you real quick. This is kind of interesting. In 2011, so 2010 was the first master plan that I could find. In my records, and it showed this project needed to be done. In 2011, the city started applying for funding from WFRC. This is a drawing from that 2011 application where it shows 60 feet of pavement. We're showing, hey, we want to have this road be a standard minor arterial and have 60 feet of pavement width. That's lip gutter to lip gutter. In 2013, 2 years later, they revised that to show 52 feet of pavement, and I believe that's because they realized 60 feet is gonna really push it into those properties on the south side. So in 2013, they changed the cross section to 52 feet of pavement, lower than the 60 foot, which is our standard, to try to work with those properties better. This is what was in the application that eventually got approved in 2018, I think, 2017, 2018. As we were working through our design, let's see, I've got. As we were working through the design, we changed that 52 to 50. We changed that again. That's what we kind of showed you. At the last meeting was that 50 feet. So as we worked with Cody on the design this year, we lost, took away another 2 feet to try to get those properties to tie in better. So we're showing 50 feet of asphalt width, which is 10 feet less than our standard, but it still accomplishes the goal, which is to provide more capacity, make it a safer road. And yeah, turn it into that 3-lane facility, 2 travel lanes, and then a 2-way left turn lane. So we were able to do that. By the original thing showed like 14-foot lanes. This, I believe, Councilmember Montgomery, is similar to the lane widths in front of your house on Larson Lane. They're 11-foot lanes and a 12-foot center median and 2-way left turn lane. And then we provide for the 2-foot buffer and a 6-foot bike lane. I mentioned last time that the bike lanes identified on WFRC's active transportation plan. They show that all the way from 2000 west and far west all the way up to 89 as a bike route. So we're showing that on both sides of the road there. Another thing we did to try to help with the tie-in with the driveways was move the sidewalk out to the back of the curb. So instead of having a park strip We moved it out to the back of curb. The minimum for a sidewalk, when you're looking at back of curb is 6 feet. But at every single driveway, you have to bump back to 7 feet to get a minimum of a 3-foot approach and a 4-foot walk. So, the decision was, instead of going back from 6 feet wide to 7 feet wide at every driveway, to just keep it a consistent 7 foot, you have a consistent line there. So that's where the decision was made with the 7-foot walk. That's, I guess, the background a little bit on that,
So could I ask you a couple questions, Sam?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the city's general plan of future transportation map, 2019. And it calls that road a collector. That's how it's identified on our master plan. It says collector. So based on our standard, that's a 66-foot right of way.
yeah, well, and then so in all the transportation master plans, they call it, like I said, you get a little bit of nuance between whether you call it a major collector or a minor collector. Show you some of these reports. Some of the reports call it a minor arterial, some of them call it a major
Okay.
collector.
So the main point I wanted to say is we got some, in our own language, we have some conflict in terms of what we call a design standard is.
Yeah.
But, what of the, traffic accident count on that segment of road that has led to a center median being added to the road design?
Traffic, I haven't looked that up recently. I know when we put in the application, we have to report accident numbers. The other thing about it is, when you look at capacity, when these transportation consultants are looking at it, I know it's not a travel lane, but it does add capacity to the road, equivalent to 1,000 or 2,000 cars per day, is the way they look at it. So when they're looking at capacity, they're saying, right now, we're at a level of service C. By 2033, we're gonna be at a level of service E if we don't do anything to expand the capacity. By adding a center turn lane, it does give you, 1,000, 2,000 more cars per day on the capacity, which keeps our level of service acceptable. Some of the studies even did say that in 2050, it will be back down to a level of service E. But we all know we don't have, but even though it said that, they said the recommendation was still to widen to a 3-lane facility, but we don't have the space for anything bigger than the 3-lane facility.
Now, in that design or in that analysis of the road itself, I think you said at the last meeting, presently we're at 8,500 trips a day on that, from West Harrisville Road. Did you?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that is because you said that, and then I looked at the state's counts of the road. And they said that in 2019, the road was at 11,000 trips a day.
Yeah.
And their projection for 2050 goes up to 13,000, which isn't below the capacity of a 2-lane road.
So the capacity is, I think it's 10,500 is where kind of that split of what they're saying is puts it below that level of service. And it's interesting to see the different numbers, because either the 2010 or the 2015 transportation plan, they were showing that it was at 16,000 cars per day, and they projected it to get up to 23,000. But our most recent traffic counts, the 8,500 that I think I quoted in the last meeting, was based on our 2023 master plan. When they put counters out there, that's what they came up to.
Right.
But yeah, you can pull up that UDOT traffic map that'll show you. And like I said, I think shows it on what that's.
Well, then that's the state projection of what they see going up to 2050. They said 2050 will be at 13,000.
Yeah.
Whereas they said 2023 would be 11,000, but at 2026 we're at 8,500. So we're below in terms of numbers on what that road is doing. And the fact that that road really, as you look at all those master plans, the traffic counts gets lower once you hit 1,200. So this improvement is not for the overall from here to Fremont High. Because those traffic counts all seem to go lower once you hit 1,200.
Right, because
People
people
going to the
are peeling off to go down to the freeway.
industrial park.
North or just industrial park.
Or the, elementary school, those kind of.
Yeah, that's right, which makes sense.
So when, in that idea, and you kind of know where I stand on terms of context sensitive design and
Right.
smart streets and that type of thing. The designing of a wider pavement width really is kind of the idea of, we're gonna make sure that when people perceive something as in terms of road width, they may travel faster, so we're gonna give a margin of error for that faster speed they may want to go because they look at the road width. And when you get a narrow road, that slows people down, so in one way, it makes it safer for accident with the vehicle, an accident with the pedestrian, an accident with the car on a bike. Because they feel more constrained and pay more attention in a tighter street than they do in a wider street. That, you know, it's posted at 35,
Sure.
I just feel I'm gonna go faster.
Well, yeah, if you've got 16-foot lanes and it's a straight road and you can just go, people are gonna go faster to your point. That's why we have been trying to trim, I mean, that's one of the reasons, honestly, we've been trying to trim that asphalt width back and still meet kind of all the design parameters, which is adding that center turn lane. Like, we did the same thing, like I mentioned on Hudson Lane, but as you mentioned, even if you stripe those lanes a little narrower, it'll cause people to drive a little bit slower because they felt, like you mentioned, a little bit tighter.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing we did here, was try to get those lanes a little bit short, a little bit narrower. That does help with the speed. And it also provides the space we need to, 4 or 5 lanes and that buffer between the lane.
And then we've got a natural bottleneck to the railroad,
Yeah,
so that's 39 feet
right. But
pavement there.
you drop off the center median, because you don't need to, you can't turn left. You have to make turning movements.
Right, but I guess my point is, how does that affect the segments between the railroad and North Harrisville Road in capacity and all those four benefits, when it's only, what, is it a mile of street?
Quarter mile.
The whole, it's like.
No, just from railroad to North Harrisville Road, how long is that?
That's, it's less than half.
Okay, so with that bottleneck there,
About half,
okay, so that bottleneck there at a half mile, do you really gain the capacity that you're talking about, or the benefit of having that wider spot just to narrow it down again in a half
but we're
mile?
not dropping off any travel lanes.
No, you're not, but the idea was, you mentioned with the middle line of that, you're going to increase.
Right,
Capacity.
for people to turn.
Uh-huh.
So
If
you pull them
someone's
out,
turning at the railroad, it's not gonna slow anyone down.
and you pull them out of the travel lane into a turn lane to keep traffic moving. That's where the extra capacity comes from. But they can't do that,
But the road, no, you can't, because that's a limitation.
plus project would be 5 times as expensive than ever get built.
We wanted to do that.
Right.
You've got a major power line there, yeah.
But the idea, and one of the, that 2010 master plan that I referenced, their recommendation said match the width west of the tracks. Well, the width of the asphalt, like Mayor Shuman mentioned, the width is 52 feet of asphalt, which is, I think, is where they kind of landed on, this is what we're gonna do, is 52 feet of asphalt, because from the tracks going until you drop off on that south side, that's where 1200 west, where that needs to be finished off.
Uh-huh.
It's 52 feet of asphalt, so 57 from back of curb to back of curb.
But there you've got major turns into the fairgrounds with the 750 into major subdivision.
But
Yeah.
you're right, but the overall intent is to have the same cross section and same striking pattern all the way through.
Are there any things, again, in that idea of context sensitivity that could still be looked at as being revised on your drawing? I mean, a 12-foot median lane where the travel lane's only 11, where a vehicle really only occupies 8 feet.
Yeah, those travel lanes, they typically recommend being a little bit wider because you're making that turn and movement. So it gives them a little more space, because everybody's not a perfect driver, right? And they turn in a little awkward. So they will typically, what you'll see what's fairly typical is see 12-foot travel lanes and a 14-foot.
Yeah.
Two-way left turn lane or center median. So we're trying to bring that down, but still give a little bit of room so they feel comfortable and safe making those turns.
The smart growth, they're talking about 10 or 11 foot because of travel, like
Yeah.
that to help
And you see those a lot,
control.
yeah, through like a town center type, development, right? Really bring everything.
I was just gonna say, in regards to context sensitive to people. So people will slow the traffic down more than, you know, a tree or narrowing the road. If people are out on the sidewalks, if bikers are in the bike lanes, that's what's gonna slow traffic down.
Yeah, other questions? I know yours. So on the designing of like the irrigation piping and all that, what standard do you hold that?
As in, like the material, the pipe
Yeah,
and
I
that.
mean, it's like, you use the same head gates that were in there before, you
Yeah,
install different head
yeah.
gates, you do different boxes.
Yeah, so the intent would be to match what's existing. That would be the goal, because we're trying to just provide the same amount of flow, same amount of access.
But obviously pulling out an old head gate's not gonna work, so
Yeah.
these new structures, these new boxes are gonna be, you know, new turnout structures with new head gates. And we'll work with the ditch users to.
Any other questions?
Maybe one other question. I'm okay, I'm sorry. But
That's why we're here.
you're only gonna do this once, and if you take the land to the street now, you're committed to that. And I'm just concerned that we're creating something to quote me to plan that doesn't need to really be that wide to meet the plan to get transportation moving back and forth, make improvements. And so that's where my concern is that even in your design, you're not doing a 99-foot right of way. So do we vacate that, south side to get into a road width that is now going to be usable rather than it was there as pioneers established that flat, you know, nothing to use that.
Are you asking if we should vacate?
Well, that'll be a city question.
For the, yeah,
Yeah, that'll be a city question.
because the only, when I look at the road and look at context design or any changes to make it narrower,
Mhm.
really where we're at this point would be losing that center turn lane or losing bike lanes. Which I guess were both parameters that we were working
Yeah.
with, and that's the only, at this point, that's the only thing I think that we could potentially do, right?
Yeah.
To get it-
And I guess that,
to get
that
it-
might be the question I have, is I don't want to lose bike lanes, but we also got to address, if you have a bike lane there, once you hit the railroad track, you have to go out into the traffic, because you're not gonna hit a railroad track at an angle, you're gonna try it, you're gonna hit it perpendicular and then cross it.
Yeah, I know the hope, the long-term hope too, is that we can, you know, as, for example, if the front runner ever comes through and they do improvements there, that we can help make some improvements for the crossing of the railroad. That's out of the scope of this project, but we do have the pedestrian crossing on the north side, but we hope potentially as, you know, the front runner comes through or whatever, that maybe there's some things that we can improve with the
Yeah.
crossing.
Don't look at that point.
Yeah.
I just, I just like to see that center lane reduced. I look at some of the other roads along that route that have no center lanes, still have as many homes along the route. And are still in the long range plan are not saying we're not gonna make widens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that probably boils down to what their traffic counts are and what their projected traffic.
They're lower than what we are on this segment.
Right, so they're not showing that they would need more capacity.
Right.
That center lane is helping us get more capacity down
Yeah.
the road.
But again, I guess the question is, do we, in the long run, do we need that capacity given the projected counts and the actual counts being much lower than the projected? And the really, even the projections are only showing the 11 1,200 cars difference in 2050 than the quote president 20 at 11,000. But it's only 8,000. That's where I have the concern of just trying to get that design right, the little improvements.
I still think that one of the major things that you talked about hasn't really been hit is the safety factor. And I realize what the faults are and what you're talking about, but I've been down West Harrisville Road where somebody's making a left-hand turn, blocks the lane, pulls everybody else around. We did the same thing on Larson Lane. Once Larson Lane was put in, that solved that problem.
Right.
And that took away an issue of a safety factor of damaging cars and people. And I did think that has to weigh heavily in this whole thing too. I mean, you can't put a, I don't care, you can't put a camera on line.
Well, that's why I asked the question, what is our traffic access now?
Well, and I understand that, but at the same time, I also know on the other end, what a safety lane in the middle has helped. And I think that needs to be weighed, that's all I'm saying. It has to be weighed. Yes, I understand traffic patterns, but I also know that it's not gonna get better.
Right.
It's not gonna, it's gonna continue to more just,
No, we also, sorry.
no, it's all right.
I was gonna say, projections are not always correct. And we have to account for that. They may be higher, especially as Harrison expands.
Right.
We have a lot more coming in.
Right, and to your point too, this is our one shot at improving the road, and I would have hate to go under capacity to where you come back 10 years from now and you have to tear it out and widen again, right? But that's what we're trying to avoid, is we're trying to plan for that future the best we can, given, obviously the design parameters we have with the existing homes. So we're trying to do our best we can to meet both.
And it seems to me like that there's issues that we haven't necessarily addressed, and that is, number one, we have a grant to cover the expense of that comes from the federal government,
Right.
which then puts UDOT at a certain degree of responsibility for the design side of it.
Right.
And I imagine there's certain minimums that we have to meet to keep that grant, right?
Right. It was all based off of, yeah. You're right, because it was all based off of the improvement. If they don't see that this is gonna provide any capacity and be a regional, because they're granting these awards based on kind of a regional benefit as well. So if they say we're not gonna increase any capacity at all in this roadway, then yes, I think that grant money would be in jeopardy. So it's in the
I think that's something we have to keep in mind from a council standpoint is, Harrison City doesn't want, we don't have to dig up millions of dollars to try to pay for that where it's been already granted. And we want to make sure we're, not taking property away from citizens, but we just want to keep those things in mind. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you. I think you've answered a lot of questions today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
No, appreciate it. Let's get to the rest of the fun stuff.
Well, we'll get started on our city council meeting. First item on the agenda is the pledge of allegiance. Councilmember Fawcett.
All right. Please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for this day, for the opportunity that we have to meet as a council and as a city to discuss the needs that are here before us. We pray that thy spirit will attend us and that we will be mindful of the needs of the city, tempered with the needs of the citizens whom we represent. And we are so grateful for this opportunity, and we ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Our next item on the agenda is for public comment. I'd like to keep the public comment to 3 minutes. If you were here at the last meeting, I said that I would respond to them, but we've had a change in that. we still will respond. However, we need to respond through an email to you. So what we'll do is, we'd like to have you give us your email address. We'll record that, and then we'll respond through an email, which will then also be a part of our minutes for the meeting. Okay? So when you get up, introduce yourself. You can give us your email address if you'd like to have a return or answer to your questions, then we'll be happy to respond after them. Maybe for the next meeting. Anyway. Anybody with public comment, please come on.
Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Charlie Lynch, C Lynch at weaver.edu. Thank you for having me. Welcome and thank you, city planning members. I've heard from the group dozens of complaints from our fellow city members. Yet I've heard no solutions. I'm here to offer a solution. Parcel 114680001 in tax unit 20. It is 11 acres that we as taxpayers already own. A road could be built through the parcel on the north side at a minimal expense to the taxpayer and accomplish the same goal of moving overflow traffic. This will eliminate the need to negotiate with water companies, the railroad, power company, etc. One company that would need to be negotiated with is Entity X LLC on parcel 1101-90007. The road could be as wide as the city wanted, sidewalks galore, bike lanes on both sides. This is a cost savings solution that is both reasonable and realistic. Turn lanes that were mentioned in the previous meeting could be addressed and solved. Please consider the benefits and cost savings of utilizing parcel 114680001 for the expansion and widening project to meet the needs of traffic flow. Thank you.
Marvin Farrell. Email marvinfarrell@msn.com. And I apologize, I thought that was a closed, open, what do you call it?
It's a work session.
Work sessions, thank you. So I missed some of it, so if I maybe hit on some things that you already went over, I apologize. What I'd like to bring up is, in the last meeting, this quote, Matt Robinson explained the right of way, and we're referring to West Harrisville Road. It was deeded as a 6 rod, which is 99 feet. The surveyor for the project worked with the Weaver County Surveyor's Office to ensure the right of way are correct. Matt Robinson explained the right of way was agreed upon by the Weaver County Surveyor and UDOT. I went into the Weaver County Survey office. I talked to the Weaver County surveyor in there, and what I found out is that West Harrisville Road was set aside for a 6-rod road for the 1885 easement. What was later found out is that it needed to be filed on, which maybe you've already discussed that, prior to the 1976 ruling, which Weaver County has no roads that have been filed on with the 1885 easement. Also, I was able to find up some old documents back when Utah was a territory, referring back to that. I don't have a lot of time to go through all this, sorry. The other thing, I sent an email out to all of you. I hope that you were able to look at that. And I got one response back to that. The other thing is that
you're going to, or you want to propose, and the wording may be incorrect, but anyway, tonight, and vote upon whether you continue or not, with the proposal of West Harrisville Road and then the adjustments for the citizens along there. One of the other comments that was made in the meeting before, that we would be contacted by someone, accusation, is that correct? And person, I have not been contacted by anyone about this or discussed anything with anyone else as far as any values or what would be done as far as the project on West Harrisville Road. I have a lot of other things here, and I'm out of time. And the other one is is it PID, the Lomond, to enter into that contract with them. And as far as what I understand with other cities that have done that, that's a bad idea. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And thanks for representing us.
Any other public comments?
Mayor, City Council, my name is Jay Behanan, email jbehanan@gmail.com. Just a couple of things. When the ditch gets ripped out, because it will get ripped out along the south side of the road, where that goes down through there. It should apply, the current standards for Western irrigation water should apply to that. Those standards are in place for a reason. Whether that is how it is or not now doesn't apply because it's not currently right. We made those standards because there were issues. And so we need to make those things right. In the last city council meeting, somebody suggested that the police officers should not take their cars home. I disagree with that completely. I think they should take their cars home. We take great benefit from other cities who have police officers who work in our area or who live in our area, and the same applies to other community members. We should not. We should allow our city employees the benefit of that. It's a great benefit, and they are often misused and undervalued, and I love them. I think they're great. And then lastly, I think that a bike lane across the tracks would be wonderful. And I know that's not part of this project, but that's my 2 bits. Thank you.
Kevin Marble, and Mayor said he's already got my number, but it's POPS Marble, B as in Victor, ARBLE.KB@gmail.com. My comment tonight, I think there's been some great discussion. I brought this up at our previous meeting, and I spoke to some of you, I spoke to the mayor, different ones. We're honored, Janet and I am, to host the dinners for the senior citizens, and we've had a tremendous turnout. It's been exciting. It's blessed so many people's lives, and we'd love to, and we plan to continue to do that. We're addressing just a little bit of change in the budget due to the climate prices and groceries, and if that comes down, then take some of the budget away. We have had a member, I can't remember, there's 2 reached out and said they'd be more than glad to donate. And I'd be more than willing to do fundraisers or ask stores if they'd like to help out. I have no problem with that. But we are proposing, Mayor and the council, that that budget can be increased. We went from basically 20 and today's was 50. Last month was 60. And it's a great program. All of our entertainment, everything like that is free. And I think it's just a great thing. And if that could be something that was considered seriously, it'd be great. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment. Item number 4 is the consent items. First one is approval of the meeting minutes for January 13th and January 27th.
I've got a few corrections.
Okay, great.
And I'll preface this, I had to talk about the method of recording, doing minutes. But the first question I had was about no question marks after questions being asked, and so I understood the reason why we don't do that. I appreciate that explanation from Jack, so thank you for that. So let me get into the January 13th. So on page 7, as Mr. Barble just stood up, his name appears on page 7, first line, but it spells his name Varbol. It's Varble. So that changed. On page this is on page 10, line 23. It said, Parks and Recreation Committee will a good idea. Well, I'm missing a will be a good idea. Just add that in that line. And then also on that same page, and this is on the third line, it says, if residents want to be volunteer, please notify him. Just take out let, please notify him. Then on page 12, on line 9, says we need to figure out who presents items, and then period, is it staff, planning commission, or the applicant? Really, I think it's a little better than said, we need to figure out who presents items such as staff, planning commission, or the applicant. Take out is it and put such as in that. Then on page 13, third paragraph, just a comment that says, Councilmember Montgomery inquired, where do you go from here? And really, especially there, where do you go from here with West Harrisville Road? Just my thought would be added, but what here is with West Harrisville Road. On that. So that's on January 13th. On January 27th, page 3, third paragraph, line 5, it says property channels they should be property channels instead of property channel. Property channel should be used. Page 4, third paragraph. It says, then the assistant chief and the review. And the intent was the assistant chief would then review it. So the assistant chief be reviewed. And then also on page 5, line 26, it says, and try and get as close, it should be as try getting as close as possible. So that's page 5, line 26. Let's see. And then I just have one comment Jack made to this and the council. On there, we have on the first list on the front page, we say who's here. Would it be helpful to say visitors who signed in? Because Kevin Barble's name is not listed on here, but that he's the first person to stand up and speaks. To just cover, we might have some people who don't sign that are here and their names are on the action items. Is there any value to that, or we just leave it at visitor? Knowing that this is not full account who all think could be.
You have a recommendation for that one, Brody? Because it's, everything I've seen is just try to get a list of whoever.
Yeah. If you're gonna change it, just say persons that signed in.
Yeah, something like that.
It's totally a.
So it's really not anything. Okay. But those are the things I saw as far as maybe directions for those two meetings.
Thank you. Is there any other adjustments? I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 13th and January 27th.
Those are the additions.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the two meetings with the proposed revisions as stated.
I'll second
All in favor?
it. Aye.
Thank you. Second, the next item on the agenda is advise and consent to the mayor's appointment for planning commission. So the first one I'll cover is Mr. Chad Holbrook, who's already currently serving on the planning commission. And he's up for another term. His term ended, so his ending was it last month? Yeah, so December is when it ended, but I've had a conversation with him and he'd like to continue, so I'd like to recommend his approval. And then I've talked to 4 really good people, all great residents of Harrisville, and they all have good things. And so as I chose one more to serve, and choose out of 4 people, and so I've chosen Ruben Morales, and he's out here in the audience, and he has a background in electrical engineering. I think would serve us well in the planning commission. So I'd like to have you vote on, the assignments of the planning commission.
I'm just wondering, are the others staying even? Or we just-
Yeah, the rest of them are all staying in and currently there, so their term hasn't ended, so it would just be a reappointment of Chad Holbrook and then Ruben is in the planning commission.
Thank you.
Have a motion?
I make a motion that we ratify the mayor's nominations for planning commission.
That's there, good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Ruben, welcome. Chad, I thought I saw you out there, so there he is. Next item, we're in business items. The police department accreditation presentation, that'll be done by Shupe. Val?
Mayor, City Council, it's a pleasure to be here, from Executive Director with Utah Chiefs Police Association. I'm here to, present your department with the accreditation. There are 35 agencies in the state that are accredited, and your department is one of them. And, to give you kind of a background on this a little bit, having been a former police chief myself, and serving on the city council for 8 years, I know the importance of what policies and procedures are within a police department. And how important that is, and that they're following those policies and procedures. The accreditation process, we have 177 standards that they have to follow. Now, they just don't get to have policies, they also have to show that they're doing those standards, that they're following them. They have to show proofs, and it's a long, hard, tedious process. Chief Wilson's done a fantastic job of getting that together, and his staff, and putting together their accreditation process. Each year, they have to submit a yearly report to the Utah Chiefs Police Association Accreditation Alliance that they are up to date. Every 4 years, they have to recertify. So, and I had the opportunity to do the accreditation for Harrisville City. I was the assessor. And so after they had gone through the standards and we made sure that they were the way they were supposed to be, we had the opportunity to come out here and visit the Harrisville Police Department. And we went through 4 areas, mainly through records, the evidence, patrol, and detectives. The evidence room was well maintained, it's well organized, and it's overseen. And that's one of the biggest issues that we look at. And it's not just in this state. It is in all states. A lot of departments have issues with evidence. missing evidence, whatever the case may be. We went in, and I can tell you as a fact that your police department's done an excellent job of making sure that things are tagged properly, that they're maintained, that they're destroyed properly, and that their policies are followed on there. The records was also very good. Now, I can't say this. Your evidence room in this police department is very small. They're very limited on what they can do with their evidence, but they do a great job of organizing that. And I believe Sergeant Davis is over the evidence, done a tremendous job. And so I commend her on that for that. And the records, we went down, we went through the records, how they destroy them, how they give them out on grandma request, they're following law. And these policies and procedures and standards are not just any policy, they also follow federal, state, and city ordinances. And they're required to do that. And we have a training every year after the state legislature where we go through any new ordinances or policies or procedure coming out of the state. And they go to a new edition. So next year there may be 180 standards. And they'll have to make sure they're up to date on that. So having said that, it is our pleasure to present to the Harrisville Police Department the accreditation, and I'll read this. The Harrisville Police Department approved and accredited in recognition for the completion of the standards for certification and accreditation as prescribed and mandated by the Utah Accreditation Alliance and the Utah Chiefs of Police Association, January of 2026. Chief Wilson.
So, everybody knows Dennis just retired. Dennis was a huge part in the police department getting this accreditation, so I invited him tonight to accept this accreditation with me because he's put a lot of time and effort into this, and he built this great foundation to move forward with, so we will appreciate you. We can have everybody clap. I'd like to do a picture real quick before we.
Right here, too. First. I get Mr. Shuman, there's a two.
Pull some more guys.
Everybody, Todd, Steve, welcome. Dennis Cabell. He's just happy. 1, 2, 3. One more. There we go.
Then we do all of our police department, Chief Wilson for that, all the hard work. Next item on the agenda is a discussion and possible action to approve the Healthy Utah Designation Strategy. And that's going to be presented to us by Chad Holbrook.
Good evening, my esteemed colleagues in city council, and my friends. Okay, I don't know how familiar you are with our Healthy Utah designation, so I thought I would just give just a little bit of background. Early in 2021, I came across the idea that we could, as the city, become designated as a healthy community. And I brought this to the attention of Bill Morris, who was then our city manager. And he said, go for it. And my thinking behind this was that this would be something great to brag about, you know, amongst other cities, as well as something that could help facilitate better, healthy outcomes in our community and just make our community better overall. So in order to achieve this designation, there are 4 central areas, and we have to have a strategic goal in each of those 4 areas. And so those 4 areas are collaboration, access to health, access to healthy food, and active living and mental health. And so we came across, we developed those strategies and submitted our application, and it was approved. The mayor and I, Mayor Tate and I, actually did a video presentation as well that was played to those that were making the determination. And I think that all contributed to our approval, but we had a really good application. So now we seek approval every 3 years for to continue the same designation. Now, there are different criteria. One of the criteria is that depending on how big your city is, you have to have that many more strategies to maintain your designation. And where we have under 9,000 citizens currently, we only had to come up with 1 designation, 1 strategy in order to resubmit our application for approval. So if you can go to, so right here, our strategies, our ideas were farmers market, and I would definitely ask that we move forward with this in the future. I am an advocate of bringing people into the community. And right now, there are just a few things that bring people into Harrisville, including those that live here. There's Chili's, there's Walmart, there's Betos. And I'm thinking that we need other activities that are not only going to bring people here, but bring our citizens together. And having a farmer's market at a time other than when Ogden City has their farmer's market would be a good way to do that. That would also help us in helping to meet our criteria for renewal in successive years. We also thought about doing a mental health fair, which is still a wonderful idea. That's going to take a little bit more planning. What we did is we came up, and I believe that we would like to formally advocate for the partnership with Every Kid Outdoors. That's something that we can do relatively quickly without much time and financial means. This is something that we can use current city efforts to piggyback off from. For those of you that are not familiar with this program, it's actually a fantastic program. The Utah Healthy Program, Healthy State and Healthy Program, together with the Utah League of Cities and Towns, came up with this effort. And we're concerned, as you know, about the amount of screen time that students have and how they spend more time inside than outside. And so this activity is designed to get kids and their families outside, to get them involved in nature, and then to build a love for nature moving forward. And so we think this fits great and will help us as a strategy to renew our healthy city designation. So we would like to advocate this program. And there are two things that we could do. You'll notice on the far right there that there's a challenge to this, and it's almost like scouting in the sense that there are challenge badges, they call them, very similar to merit badges for scouting. And the idea is that you select, or the child or family selects a badge that they want to work on, one is camping, for example. And then they just list a series of criteria, things that you could do as a family to earn this particular challenge badge. And if you earn all 15 of these badges in the course of a year, then you're eligible to enter a drawing for various prizes. And so there are just really easy requirements. They need to register, and then quarterly they're sent a survey by the state to fill a login and to submit pictures of what they've been doing so that they know that they have in fact been working on this particular badge. And then make sure that they maintain that all year long. So there's a series of criteria that they have to meet. If we could go to the next slide, that'd be great. Okay, so here's what we have, our options are. So types of partnerships. So we could be a distribution center where we just simply distribute what they call passports for these kids. That's where they log their information down. They put their stickers that they earned, their badges, etc. And that's really all that we would have to do is just hand out these passports. So that's a very simple thing that we can do. The next one is we could become a community hub, which is where we actually put together 4 events that tie into one of those 14 badges. And we do that over the course of a year. So just 4 events. And we can use other city activities that are already being held. Let's add in some of the criteria for this and would help us meet that community hub. So that's something to consider. Right now, we're just talking about being a distribution center, but it would certainly be within our purview at some point to be a community hub. And I think that would be a good idea. Again, bringing not only our citizens together, but perhaps people from other communities. So the role of being a distribution center really is to hand out these booklets, these passports. We would have to sign up as a distribution, and then we would have to attend some training. They're saying 50% of the FACE staff would need to watch a training video. Doesn't say how long, but I would imagine that it's not a very long training video. And then we just simply have to report on a quarterly basis the number of passports that we've handed out. So again, the requirements aren't necessarily very challenging. It's something that could be easily added to and accomplished within the city. So exciting things. So this is what as a committee we are hoping to advocate for, and this will be included in our application. And so we're hoping to get the buy-in from the city and on this endeavor, but we're looking forward to future opportunities that will benefit our city in, I think, many marvelous ways. The other thing I would like to do is I've noticed that we don't have a plaque up or any sort of indication that we have achieved this award, and I would like to see something placed up where people can see it when they come in. So if we could do that, that would be great. And I'm open to any questions, if you have any questions, if I haven't explained things well enough.
So if you look at like, with some of these programs, what kind of expense are you looking at from the city's perspective?
There really wouldn't be any expense for this. We would get all the passports from the state. We would just simply have to pass those out.
Now, is that the badge too?
No, they're like a little log book.
Okay.
And this is where they would put the badges that they earned, the challenge badges that they, and then they would also keep track of the things that they did while they earned their challenge badge.
So who issues the challenge badge?
The state does.
The state
Yes.
sends them.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it's very easy. There's no expense that way. It would just be a matter of training, the staff to hand out the badges and to answer questions, etc.
But that would only be if we're, sorry. Your job. Only be if we're a distributor, not a hub, correct? With a hub, when we were planning those events, then there would be a cost incurred, correct?
Right. That's exactly right. And the neat thing about this too is if we did become a community hub, we would be able to piggyback on some of the existing activities within. So there would be less of an expense that way. So just something for you to consider. I think we could do both. I mean, it certainly would be with the, skill set of the city, and they would be able to pull it off marks, I think.
So how much involvement from the residents has there been since we became designated in this program?
Well, I have to tell you that, I don't know how we would quantify that. We don't really have a measure. What we did do, as a part of our initial application is we indicated that we would do a walkability, movability audit. Because one of the things that we want to beautify our city is we want people to be able to walk through the city. We want people to be able to walk to various destinations, enjoy recreation, get out with their family, etc. And this walkability audit allowed us, all those that participated, and we did it in 2 phases. One initially, and then the other one was, the last one was completed by a group of youth, actually pretty close to 300 youth, from Pleasant View, that came down to do a service project, and I coordinated that effort with them. And they finished going around to all aspects of the city to determine where we had problems with sidewalks, where there was cement that was up in the sidewalk where people could catch their foot, where sidewalks were completed. And those sorts of things. And then we made the recommendation to the city. So again, our desire as a committee is to make Harrisville City more livable, and more accessible and more enjoyable, for the citizens, because we have a great community. It's beautiful, and we want people to be able to walk and enjoy themselves and recreate. So that's part of what we've done, and we had a big turnout there, in both of those 2 efforts, and so it was good. And we're hoping that we can get this word out not only within our community, but take advantage of some of the efforts within Pleasantview and North Ogden to let them know that we're also doing this, and then see if we can't get kids to come. But I think it's a worthy endeavor, and it's worthy of our city's efforts. Yes.
Do you happen to know the participation among other cities or towns around?
I don't. That's a great question. I mean, it's worth looking into, but I don't believe. Cynthia, do we have any idea of any of the other cities that are participating in this program?
We would be the first in the Ogden area to actually bring this initiative to play. Sorry. Currently, there are several cities in Cache Valley and down south that have it that are closer to recreational areas like Lake Powell or Avalon, something like that. They have different initiatives where they bring in fishing and things like that. This program that we are recommending for the council to use as the strategy for redesignation, it really is just a matter of doing a little bit of training, and then there'll be no other cost to the city except for that little bit of time for those employees to do that training. We would be bringing it in. I've already talked with staff about using it in the future and with part of our initiatives and programs that we already have to expand them. The great thing about that is they also have grants that are available. So if we do want to expand one of our programs, we can apply for a grant through that department to try to see if we can expand it as well. So that's why we're recommending it, is because it has little cost to the city, little to no cost to the city in the full present. And it has the potential of bringing more of the communities around, which is exactly what we are getting back as feedback as council. We want more communities.
Chad, I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What is the age group starting?
5 to 18.
5 to 18?
Yes,
Okay.
is the target.
And as the Cynthia explained, we're the only community in this area doing this right now. So
Yep.
if this becomes the growing thing, we'll get most likely people from other areas coming in to participate in the event we're holding.
Yep, that's the hope.
But isn't the whole initiative of Healthy Utah Community Designation Strategy that also involves adult members too, right? Not just kids. This was the every kid outdoor initiative, but there's more to it than that. It's part of the overall program.
Right, as a part of our renewal for this year, for the next 3 years, we just had to come up with one additional initiative, what we're already doing. And so everything that we're currently doing for adults and other members of the community, that will stay. But this will be in addition to that.
How do you advertise and figure out that we're doing this?
This, I believe we can put it out in our city newsletter. You can put it out online. I would love to see the Healthy Utah designation even on our website. It would be great to see those things happen. But yeah, I think in every way that we communicate with our community, we could also advertise in that.
And did you say the renewal is every 4 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Worth it. It's worth the feather in our cap. That's worth the bragging rights.
Well, I can see a lot of spin-offs that happens from that designation in a recreation program or something.
Right. Yeah, there's lots that we can work with here.
Well, Chad, you're looking for a motion, right? And to approve this initiative?
I don't know. I suppose so, yes.
I know on the
I'm
minutes.
getting a nod, yes. I was hoping to convince you that I would be to.
That was this.
Yes, in order to meet our application, we have to adopt a new strategy.
Okay.
And I'll make a motion that we adopt the Healthy Utah Designation Strategy as proposed by Chad.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Next item on our agenda is the Venlo News PID discussion. So Brandon Green, you have to interrupt. Give us
Anything
more information.
Mayor and Council, I'm Brandon Green, flagship. I also just want to thank the police chief and his officers and deputies for the wonderful job that they do. I had the opportunity to work in the city a few years ago and appreciated the law enforcement in my community. So thank you for what you do. Like I said, I'm Brandon Green. Worked with Flagship Homes, met with you last month in a work session about the PID that we are looking to get approval from the council on. This is in the Lomond Heights development. I sent some information to Jack, and I believe that you got that information. And just, yes, want to see if there's any questions or anything that I can maybe answer. Regarding the PID, we show some of the benefits that this would provide. One of those benefits would be trails and connectivity, as was discussed in the Healthy Utah initiative just a minute ago. As we would be able to help the city with parks, open space, and trails using within a PID as well. So with that being said, I just here
Well, I'm the new one on the block, so, because I was involved in the development itself, as you listed some of the things that are benefits or improvements, I've got a few questions, and just so I can understand how those took place.
okay.
So let me just go down my list. So you made mention of the collector road being required from 2000 down to Highway 89. So what is the width of that road?
It would be whatever the standard is for your collector. I know it's the widest road. I'd have to look at the plans.
So
like-
it's 66 foot right away, that's
Uh,
what the collector standard is.
I would imagine that it's something close to that, yes. I could look at the plan set and let you know, and I'd be happy to email you back on that.
Yeah, that'd be helpful to know what is actually signed. Is it truly a collector road? Because I know on the city's master plan, it says that would be a local road in terms of alignment. So I was just curious.
We don't have any homes or anything fronting on that road. It is a main thoroughfare through the city, or through the development.
Through the development, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the question, that with is it a local road that the master plan shows, or is it indeed a collector road, 66 foot?
Yeah, be happy to.
And then the other comment you read there is the upsizing you did. Do you know what are the increases? Were they to include other developments besides your own, why you upsized lines? And then what was that upsize?
So, the biggest one that I can talk about right now that we're dealing with is the Rocky Mountain Power. We had to bring in what they call a backbone and infrastructure for not only our development, but for development that is going to occur outside of our current boundaries. There is some commercial shown on the west side of Highway 89 that power would also be used to help provide power to. So there's sufficient power. There's also increased size in our culinary water system to provide increased development. Wherever that may occur, we don't know.
Do you know what that upsize is?
Yeah, we went, I believe we went from a 10-inch to a 12-inch on water, on culinary water, and then we went from an 8-inch to a 10-inch on secondary water. And then we also brought the sewer up from just right here, I believe, and took it all the way up to our development on the west side of Highway 89, went under the highway and then brought it into our development there. So that project occurred last.
So was that an upsize of line over and above your needs for your?
That was
expansion.
That was an extension of the line, to get sewer up to that end of the city. But there's capacity in there for other people to tie into, so it's not just for our development.
So I've got about 5 more.
No, you're good, you're good.
So with the parks, trails, and open space you talked about, is that space, is it managed by a homeowners association? Is it a dedicated open space? Or is it just part of the project to attract people into the development?
So, one thing that PID funds cannot fund are HOAs and private open space. However, we are proposing a large park that would be a city park. We would build all the infrastructure in it. We put, it's calling for bathrooms and maybe some pickleball fields. Sports, that hasn't been all decided yet or determined, but we're showing a large park. That would be something that would be turned over to the city, but it would be built with funds that would be from the PID. Trails, there would be trails and trail connectivity that would be constructed, that would go from Lomond Park over to this other park. That could be either, right now they're showing as HOA trails, but we could designate some of those trails as city trails, if that's so be. But there are some small pocket parks that are HOA pocket parks.
So you will have HOA doing some things, but if it's a PID project, it has to be then a city-owned property.
Yeah, just, that's what the PID funds pay for, our infrastructure related to the city. It can't be private HOA.
What is the corridor improvement on Highway 89?
So we actually, are doing a lot of landscaping along Highway 89 rather than just homes. We've got a landscaping corridor with a concrete fence that will go up along the side of those homes that are being built right now, and some improved landscaping that will be enhanced landscaping will be going along the corridor.
But curb cuts and sidewalk are already.
Sidewalk, we don't have to do that. That was already, and we have some sidewalk repair or replacement that we're going to do because it's broken and as was mentioned, a trip hazard. So there will be some sections of sidewalk that get.
But those pieces are, actually on your property rather than public right of way.
No, they're on UDOT.
So they're the public right of way in terms of the landscape and all that.
Oh, sorry, say that again.
So when you talk about the enhancements along Highway 89, the corridor improvements,
Yeah,
you're talking about what's taking place on your property rather than the
some
right.
of it's on UDOT right away and some of it is within our open space.
So you don't right away, it's just the replacement of certain parts of sidewalk, or is it landscaping on that you don't right away also?
There's, okay, I believe it's an 8-foot sidewalk along UDOT, and then there's an additional 4 feet
Of the,
that is UDOT right away, and then there's 25 feet beyond there that is open space that we would be also landscape.
okay. This,
I think it's important to note also with the construction of 1900 North up to 2000, we're also paying for a new signal there at that intersection of Highway 89 and 1950 North. I don't know of any development that's had to put in a signal. And that's, that's a cost, but we also understand that we're bringing an impact with the development of this size that would warrant safety for everybody, which would also be a benefit to whatever develops on the west side as well, because that signal will help.
okay. 2 more questions. So you mentioned the Millennial Park improvements. Now, was that increase in storm drains due to your project?
No,
Whether storm drains, storm area was needed, or was that, how was that done?
the Millennium Park
Yeah,
was done so we came in and bought the project as Millennium Park was somewhat finished. We ended up coming in and last year and grading out all the weeds and regrading it and then hydro seeding it and making sure all the sprinklers were working. R&O did the construction, I believe, of that park for the city. And then we just finished it up. But it's to help with the flows of the water that you're getting through there right now. And then we're constructing, in addition to the Millennium Park Detention Basin, 3 more detention basins on our project to help control storm water.
so in that capacity piece in Millennium Park, Is part of that then from your project run?
There's nothing going into Millennium Park right now is from our project.
So the capacity increase was not directly tied to your project needing that space?
I'd have to verify with the city engineer on that, the design of that.
Okay,
I'm not familiar with how all of that works and where all of that drains, only that we are also providing additional storm drainage, detention and storm drain facilities that would also help control stormwater, not only within our development, but stormwater within the area as well.
and the final question was, as you look at your mill levy and what you look at the total cost that you'd want to try to accommodate, what have you factored in terms of if the state revision takes place, going down to 40%, 45% appraised value of homes for taxes? How would that affect your number? But when you also now, your taxes based on a mill levy of, you know, the value of the home, and now that tax amount is going to be decreased to 45% from 55%. What does that do to your numbers?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't really looked to see what that would do to our numbers, but we would have to be accommodating. I mean, for us, it's about making sure that we provide a product to the residents that is something that people want, and we have to be competitive with that market. With a PID, we have to make sure that we're competitive, because we can't sit on several homes just sitting there hoping that somebody buys them. So, you know, if that happens, then it happens. We'll just have to adjust and work with it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Other questions?
So I have just a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I apologize, my eyes were reading, they're not as good as they used to be. So one of the questions that I have is there anything in your plan, if this were to be approved, that at a certain percentage of home sales, residents would now be on your board to make decisions regarding the PID?
It's my understanding that we set up, there's three of us that are currently on the board, and then as we bring people in, that transitions. Now, let me just ask Marcus, is that the case?
Yeah, so per state law, so this isn't up to them to decide, per state law, that would be turned over to the homeowners within a 4 to 6 year period, so they do stagger it, so the first two would end after 4 years, and the third one would be after 6 years. But the law is that eventually the homeowners would have that within that time period. And then just quickly, sorry, I just jotted down a note. The PID governing documents, if adopted, would hold a hold harmless. So even if the state did change the primary exemption from 0.545, I think, to 0.6, yep. So if they change that exemption, the dollar amount that the individual pays, let's assume that their annual payment's $1,500 a year, that would still be the same. So the calculation would still be adjusted. So the dollar amount would stay the same, even though the exemption may be adjusted. So there would be a hold harmless, and that's actually really important, not only for, you know, this PID, but obviously previous PIDs that were done that are anticipating that taxable value. So a hold harmless provision would be needed to make sure investors are comfortable with it.
I think, I think one of my major concerns with the project, and I think I brought this up the last time, is, I understand that it's there that, from our conversations previously, that there are lenders that don't want to pay for these types of improvements. That's one of the reasons why we're coming forward and asking this. But my question, though, and this might be complex so I'll try and phrase it in a way that hopefully makes sense in my brain, and it can make sense in your brain too. But, if let's say that we're going to have a house that sells for 500,000. Because of this, you get the lower financing, it actually would end up costing you 550,000 construction if you had to go through normal funding options. So help me understand the benefit in the homeowner's perspective and view that they are getting a 500, let's say that it would cost you $550,000 to construct. And by the time they buy it, it's now worth $550,000. They're still gonna pay the $550,000. Not the $500,000 that you could have constructed it for. So help me understand that benefit to the cost that it's going to expend, because it's like I'm having to pay my mortgage plus.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just explain that the PID is set up to help pay for infrastructure costs related to the development.
Right, but that would have been included in the home. To begin
Right,
with,
right, absolutely. Now, I'm just trying to think of,
because I think what I see is if there's an imbalance that, well, you're saving cost, but they're still having to pay that plus cost. It's a negative impact to the consumer, not a positive impact.
well, I would kind of disagree, because what a PID allows us to do is put in all of that infrastructure up front. Where if we were building the development of this size over several years, we've got inflation that we're trying to keep up with. So the cost still continues to rise, but what the PID allows us to do is keep those costs, because everything's already paid for, keep those costs at what they were constructed at, versus if we build 20 or 30 homes right now, and then next year we build 20 or 30 more, and we continue through the development like you would a typical development. So costs are going up. So we're trying to balance cost right now with the cost over several.
Right, but the point of that is if you have the, you know, if the cost of the home, you're getting the discounted rate on what you're putting in now. But the homeowner doesn't experience that because of market value, meaning it would have cost you $550,000 if you did it the traditional way.
Right.
And you get it to where it could be 500,000, but by the time you purchase it, it's really the value is 550. They didn't see any benefit because you saw the benefit. They didn't see the benefit. They're still paying the 550, plus they're paying the extra property tax.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead. Let me just really quick, our plan is to help them see that benefit. So if we're selling a home within a PID, we will make sure that we're competitive with the market. Now, if the market comes up and homes are going for 550,000, you know, we're gonna stay whatever the market is dictating, we're going to stay within that market. It doesn't make sense for us to sell a home at 630,000 when the people down the street are selling the exact same home for 500,000 or 550. So we need to stay in that competitive area. And we realize that we're probably gonna have to discount homes because of the cost of the PID.
That was gonna be one of my questions.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Sorry, council member.
That's okay.
I was just gonna say, I've got, because I remembered your question from last time, and I think it's important, so I tried my best to try to put a little table together that kind of showed with PID, without PID, kind of a little analysis here. And don't ball it up and throw it at me, even though you might want to. I understand, and I apologize. I've got a lot here. But I just thought this might be something here. Oh, there we go. I gave you the blank one. Is that? And I just kind of wanted to kind of go through this because I think this was brought up earlier by Sam Elder, the underwriter on it, and I kind of wanted to look at the numbers a little bit because I think the alternative isn't necessarily can I buy a home in a PID versus a home outside of a pit, I think that's an obvious answer. If you have two homes that are the same market price and one has a higher tax levy, you're always gonna buy the one outside of the pit. I think what the pit's real solution here and what the issue is in Utah as a whole is inventory. Is, can I buy a house today or do I have to wait a year because there's no inventory within my price range where I want to live? Right? And so do I need to delay that decision a year, 2 years? I might just put Jennie on the spot here. When did this development start?
What do you mean?
So that was 7 years ago, roughly. I guess it's 2026 now. So 8 years ago. I've just got this going back 2 years. And so I think maybe one way to look at this is, let's assume that PIDs were around in 2018. They weren't. But if the developer had been offered to do a PID and use that to expedite the project and build homes in 2018, I kind of just did some rough numbers on mine. I bought my home in 2020. My home's appreciated 6% annually over the last 5 years. So if you look at this, and I'll get into the scenarios to kind of break it down what that means, but so let's assume that I'm gaining equity of $10,000 to $12,000 a year by appreciation, which equity is basically just my home is becoming more expensive by that. So if I were to buy it that next year, it would have cost me $12,000 more and so forth. Roughly 6% increase. If somebody had come to me and said, hey, I've got this home for you in 2018 at $400,000, and in 2025, it's going to cost you $600,000, but you have to pay me $120 extra a month to live here. No brainer, sign me up immediately, right? I mean, that's kind of the thought. Now, the contrast and the argument is, well, what if I had a similar home that doesn't have that $120 a month fee? That's the contrast. And it's never going to win against that contrast. But in this case, like I said, with supply diminishing, with, wanting to live in certain locations, a lot of times that's not what we're seeing right now, especially in these large master plan developments. I would say nearly most large master plan developments are now a PID. So if we try to keep it that apples to apples, that might be the best way, at least for this representation. We can pick it apart here in a second. But just for that, looking at this. So if you look at the top box there, this shows what, if you were to buy that today at a $560,000 value, because that's one of the price units they have within their absorption plan, the PID fee would be approximately $1,540. We're assuming no inflation in the first year that you buy it, right? I mean, you own it, let's say less than that year, that's the starting point. So your home value, let's say, goes down because technically you've paid more than maybe somebody else outside of the PID, right? Then you look at the next year, inflation at 3%. I didn't use 6%. I did a lot of research. They were saying you use 4.5% to 4.4 to 4%. So let's just use conservative number, 3%, something everybody might get on board with. So now your home's now $576,000. You bought it. So now you're the owner, you're gaining the equity versus renting versus whatever their alternatives might be. I guess one thing I didn't put into account is if you're living like in your parents' basement or something, maybe there is a better alternative, but let's assume that's not the case. So you bought it, you still have to pay the PID fee. So now that PID fee's gone up because the value of your home's gone up. So now it's $1,586, but a 3% increase. And I just told you I got 6% over the last 5 years. I'm not saying that's ever gonna slow down. I'm hopeful one day it will, but $16,800. That's the equity they would have gained. In just that 1 year, subtracting out the PID dollars, 15,214 of equity, applying that to the old valuation. So we're still accounting for the first year of loss they have from the PID. So then you can kind of see that column there on the bottom. This is the PID scenario. You look down at the bottom, great, home purchased at $560. I just assume that most people live in their home for 10 years. I can run this model if you guys want to see 30-year scenarios, 20 years, whatever you want. So they sell it, they get a net gain of $170,000. You less out all the PID payments that they had. Their total gain is about $153,000 on that based off of 3% interest. Great, that's a lot of money. Now, if we look at the alternative, which is basically what if they had to wait a year to move into the same house? So now the starting point price that they buy into the house is $576,000. Similar formula, except we're discounting the PID. You look down at the bottom, it's roughly break even. The issue is, once we start getting past a year, and in this case, we just heard 2018 was potentially the starting point. So I did a 2-year scenario. Look at the contrast of people missing out on that equity build. You know, I should have, I apologize, I ran out of time this week, but you know, if we were to look at 5 years, that number is going to even be more of a disparity. So I'm not saying that this is the only way to look at it, but I think hopefully this at least puts some numbers to some of the questions you may have had, Councilman.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was looking for as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
The one thing you mentioned on the infrastructure, you were talking about the light, some of the power, talking about the other things that could come in. Would that give you more of a reason to maybe help us find some more businesses or something to come in to help pay for that?
We are absolutely committed to helping Harrisville City. We've got a commercial portion of our development that we want to be successful. We want to see that be a benefit, and part of that commercial area has a large open space where food trucks and movie nights and, you know, you name it, things could happen in that area. We really see this as being a benefit to the community, and we're committed to making sure that that happens. As we build homes, you know, commercial needs rooftops, and so we want to get the homes established and going, and then we will definitely be looking for good partnerships or good commercial, solid commercial to come into this area so that it is an asset to the community and not a blight or a problem for the community. Absolutely.
One other question that I have is that the diversity of things that you can use this bid for. Now I realize that it's structured like this, but can that go into more detail as far as saying, and I don't want to call it control, but into more of a refinement of where you're going to put that money?
Absolutely. The governing document, if you wanted to specify, hey, that we want, you know, this amount to go towards parks, this amount to go towards trails. Again, I would say eventually, if it's in the development agreement, regardless if they pay for it with public dollars or private dollars, they're going to have to pay for it one way or another. But if you wanted clarity to say, hey, we're allowing you to do this, but first on that list, you need to make sure that we really are getting the park within the time frame you've promised. We've seen deals structured like that so the city can be assured that if the PID's granted, that the projects, especially the public amenities, are kind of at the forefront of these projects or within a reasonable timeline that the city expects. So we can absolutely put in restrictions that guarantee the city's getting what they're expecting.
And we stand behind that 100%. There's nothing worse than moving into a new development, being promised you're gonna have a park, and the park is the very last thing that gets built, right? 10 years after you've been there, or 5 years, however long it takes, but absolutely committed to making sure that that happens.
Well, it's the structure of the PID, and this is the worst case scenario if you guys default and it is bought by somebody else.
So in this case, if the PID's bought by someone else, because these are limited tax bonds, so it doesn't necessarily matter, unlike a special assessment bond where they're able to foreclose on the property. Like I said, if let's say they only build one home within the entire PID, and then it goes, you know, I'm just giving examples, this isn't a premonition. If it goes belly up after one home has been built, the bond investor is disclosed of the risk associated with this. So as long as that one person is paying their 5 mills, even if it's one house and the rest of it's a nice park and then the rest of it open lots, the bondholder has no recourse to go after that individual or anyone else involved, because technically it's not an event of default because they're levying the mill levy on the land, on the taxable value of the land associated with the property. If they ever were to stop levying the mill levy, that would be an event of default. So that's how the individual is protected. that's actually why I like these a little bit more than special assessment bonds, where there's quite a bit more alternatives to how bondholders can get recompensated.
So another question, I realize the benefits that you've been pushing, not pushing, but developing
Mhm.
and letting us understand. Are there other options that we have to find out besides the PID? I know the benefits of the PID. If you can't get it here, you go someplace else, and how much does that cost?
Let me make sure I understand your question. If we don't get a pit here, or if we don't get approved for a pit here, would we
We're gonna
go
borrow
somewhere else?
around someplace else or try to get some other structure. What's it called?
We,
An IFD versus a PID.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can address that a little bit. And again, I'm just speaking from experience. This may not hold up exactly for Brandon's, but so typically the IFD, in my opinion, is the lesser of the two financing options. It's kind of your contingency plan if city council is unwilling to do the PID. And the reason I say that is because the PID's value that's being brought here is greater than what the IFD, which is simply a short-term financing mechanism that's paid back upon property sale lot, right? And so the issue with that then is that the additional or perhaps above and beyond infrastructure, parks, amenities, everything that you're wanting, typically I've seen go away if an IFD is there, because an IFD one doesn't require the approval of a city council. It's something that they just go straight to the state legislature, which again, something I disagree with. I think they should be partners with the cities on these type things and kind of a joint, kind of a public-private partnership type mindset in it. But the second piece to all that is also, since it does bring less value, I've typically seen people say, well, hey, now instead of pickleball courts, I'm gonna put up a couple cones and say it's a soccer field. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, it's not necessarily flagship. It's just because the developers say, I have a certain amount of ROI I have to make on this investment. And without this, it decreases that ROI. So I have to look for places to cut on and get that return back. So again, my personal experience from what I've seen switching between the two different mechanisms, not saying that's going to be the case with Brandon and his team.
Thank you.
Should we not do a PID, we talked about before that you would do the building in phases, is that kind of like the default plan maybe, or?
Well, we would, if we don't do the bid, then we would look at, some of the things that we are considering doing and trying to scale that back, because just like what was said, this is an expensive development. It's a large parcel of ground, and development doesn't normally occur like this. But when we got looking at everything that had to go into it, it just made sense. So, I don't know that I could say what we would cut. It wouldn't be nearly what we're showing. And again, we want this to be a development that people can be proud of, or that the city can be proud of, and not something that is just another development, right? So we'd have to look at that.
And I appreciate that, Marcus. That's kind of what I was gonna say. So I know it's a bird walk to get to where, several years ago, some friends, we decided that we were gonna build 3 houses and we were gonna pray, whatever. And through that, ours ended up being built from the ground last, and the friends had to pay, they had to pay their mortgage. And then Katrina happened and materials skyrocketed. So we missed out on about $80,000 worth of equity when we sold it after 5 years. And so we don't know what the market's gonna do. And so I see some of the value in getting it all done up front at the same cost, while materials right now are fairly stable. I know they fluctuate daily. My husband's a contractor, but but there's a lot of variables that go into building. And if there's something, big that happens, those other residents would kind of get a giant shortage of stuff,
Yeah.
So.
I had a couple of questions that I wrote down, but you went through a whole bunch of benefits that you were saying were tied to the PID.
Yeah.
Such as trails and parks and all that. How much of that was already approved from the planning commission in the original design plan?
Not all of it. We're showing, the large park. That was slated to be some homes. To be honest with you, it didn't make sense to put homes there because we do have some water issues that we want to be mindful of, and putting homes in an area that may not allow for that. Just made sense to create an open space, park space. So that was not in any of the designs that were approved by the planning commission. I don't know about trails and trail connectivity. As I have been working on this project, I have realized the value of being outdoors. I love the outdoors. I love to walk with my family and kids outdoors. So when I go somewhere, I want to make sure that we can walk somewhere safe and connectivity. So I've talked with Jennie about where we can connect trails and where we can create a safe atmosphere for people to be able to walk. And Jennie's been very helpful in helping us understand that. So there may have been some trails and there may have been some parks, but I can tell you right now that what we are wanting to provide with this development isn't the same as what was being proposed in 2018. There's been some significant changes, and I guess if it's not something that the city's interested in, we can turn and go back to just the open area. And I don't know what it would be, but an open area.
The other one is more of a comment more than a question.
Yeah.
But as you travel down Highway 89, which, you know, a good portion of your development's on there, you talked about putting a fence and then kind of a berm up and all that stuff. One of the challenges that we have in Harrisville today is typically the people that have that frontage along those sidewalks are supposed to maintain those. So without going into a homeowners association that helps control over that, and without putting extra burden on the city, how do we propose that the landscaping or whatever is going to be on the side of the fence that's next to the sidewalk, how is that going to be maintained versus like, so, and my thought on that is you put a cement fence in that helps protect the residents from the noise of the road and other things like that, right? And then there's a space that has, well, for no better word, that weeds in the majority of it cut down Highway 89. And maybe you have some insight on how Harrisville can help control that without having to send the code enforcement officer over to and give everybody citations.
It's going to be maintained by a company that does landscape maintenance. That's part of the contract that we have. We actually are in the process of interviewing or selecting landscapers to come in and do the landscaping. And when that gets finished, we're hoping that there will be interest for them to continue maintaining that through an HOA, because there will be parks, small parks, that will need to be maintained, and the HOA will have the responsibility to maintain those. So we'll make sure that frontage stays maintained with those small.
So are those homes along Highway 89 and wherever that fence and the berm's going to be, is that considered an HOA versus other parts that aren't HOA?
It's common open space, but you know, I can't go to Harrisville City and say, we built you this nice common open space and we want you to maintain it. So we're gonna have it maintained by the landscaper that does the maintenance of the HOA stuff. And if we have to, as a developer, pay them to maintain that, then so be it.
But what I'm saying is the HOA doesn't necessarily mean that those homes along Highway 89.
Yeah,
are
that's right.
HOA. It might be the section that's back further into the development.
It would be, I don't know how all of that's gonna work out. We haven't got to that yet, but it will be maintained. It needs to be maintained because again, we want this to be a nice looking development. We don't want to be in there for a year and then, 10 years later, people drive by and go, wow, that's terrible. We want it to look nice from the beginning all the way through. Now, I can say that right now. I don't know what the future holds, but we want to make sure that it stays nice. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? I don't have a question for you, but maybe of Public Works or Jenny. How does Harrisville City look at upgrades? For example, if an infrastructure has been added to the property that's needed for the property, that's their responsibility. But if it's upsized because it's taken somewhere else, and we're requiring them to upgrade it, not for their development, but for other developments that go through there. How do we handle those upgrades?
That's what impact fees are for. Impact fees, we do an analysis on our current infrastructure and we analyze it to see and determine what future impacts will come to that. So we do have some identified on 2000 North, for example, sewer capacity there. Force this development to come south for their sewer because our capacity limitations in some of those areas. So impact fees are what the city utilizes to upsize any type of infrastructure that the city needs to address due to increased growth and development. That's what impact fees are for.
Right, that's what I was wondering, because it sounds like some of the things talked about here would have been covered by those impact fees if they're not for the development still. That's why I'm wondering, where's that in the discussion of some of this? Like, going from a local elected level, one from.
So oftentimes the impact fee is collected at the time, well, it is collected at the time of the building permit. So we can only, those are restricted funds, we can only put those towards impacts like this. A lot of times the city partners with projects, and if an upsize is required, then we put impact fees towards that.
And you usually just pay for the upsize cost.
Right.
The developer would pay the initial cost for their development. And then if you're requiring that, and Matt Robertson obviously is heavily involved in that. If it's determined that it needs to be upsized, then we use impact fees to do that.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's kind of the same way there is place.
And I think that's important to note as well. Impact fees are still going to be collected on this development. So every permit will provide impact fees. Sewer, water, whatever your impact fees have.
And the city hasn't participated in any of that, I should be clear. We're collecting the impact fees from the residents at the time of building permits because we haven't put any cost. They've fronted the cost of all of that infrastructure.
But then once we collect the fees, or even now we have imagine a reserve of impact fees for other buildings that take place that are general. Storm, sewer line, whatever. So as the project goes in, and if we require an upsize of a line, require a wider road, a standard for the development. Are you saying that we would not, but that to meet that right now, we would wait until the development takes place and use those fees to do that, or we pay from our reserve now, pay the difference, and then reimburse our bottom line with the new construction and its impact fees?
I'm understanding your question properly. It can be a combination. This particular project specifically, we haven't used it, but other projects where we've identified a storm drain is not to capacity for the project and it needs to be upsized, we have used impact fees to increase the capacity of that.
Any other questions?
Okay, let me just close really quick by saying next month we'll be coming back to you as a council, asking for a vote in a public hearing whether to approve a PID or deny a PID. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me the time to come and present to you. I appreciate it, and I've appreciated very much working with your staff. They are wonderful people, and I appreciate them. So thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the discussion and possible action to approve the right-of-way statements of just compensation for West Harrisville Road Project, and Jenny's gonna give us some input on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. We've had a lot of discussion this tonight, so I'll try and be as brief as possible. We didn't actually touch on this item as part of the work session earlier. So I want to lead into this as this is the first step towards negotiation with the property owners. These numbers reflect what was used during the ACE appraisals of each of these properties to identify through UDOT's metrics that the cost of the temporary access easement and also the cost to cure of any trees, fence, landscaping that's being affected by the project. So when we agree to approve these just compensation statements, it allows the acquisition team to make contact with those owners and talk about the monetary value of it. If we do not approve the just compensation statements, they can talk to the property owners about the impact, but they can't talk numbers with them. They can't negotiate. This is a formal offer to begin that process.
So it's not a final.
It may not be a final. It depends on, we know there are some property owners that have bids from other providers that are showing maybe the difference in a fence cost. Those things will be addressed, but the property acquisitionists can't talk about those or address those until we make a formal offer.
So can I just ask a question? Is it under the state or the federal guidelines that we don't actually replace the things as a project? So in other words, if we're taking a fence out, that the project installs a fence? That way, the homeowner knows he's getting just what was there and is paid for. It's not up to him to now go and seek someone to do this and that. Rather, in terms of the project, it is installed as part of the project, and it's not his burden. Now, I'll get some money, but I can never install the fence I had because the price has all gone up. Is that a?
So this is actually above and beyond what we're required to pay because all of this landscaping and improvements are in the right of way. Now, obviously that would change if there's some documentation that comes forward that says that the right of way is not where it's at. But as of the research team doing the research to identify where those property lines are, all of this infrastructure that we're paying for is in the right of way. So we would be paying them out for infrastructure that possibly shouldn't have been there in the first place, but we are offering to pay that out.
So like, is our fence on the cabin? Cause I looked at that, that's within the right of way. Are we being reimbursed on the fence?
You know, I believe the infrastructure at the cabin is aligning with where the
It looks like it's in the
and
99 feet.
it may be within the 99 feet, but
That's
not
what I'm
the
saying,
80
it's in the
foot.
right.
It's not the 80 foot that we will be using for this project.
Okay, so what is the project saying? 80 feet
Mhm.
is the area we're considering removing items,
Yes.
even if they may not need to be removed because they're in the right of way.
I think
So,
I think I understood that.
so in other words, there may be things that you can work around and not affect because you've got space between there.
If they feel like there's even, and this is why they want to be able to go out and talk to the property owners about the monetary value as well. If the property owner wants to keep something and they are not affecting it, they're just anticipating this infrastructure is going to be affected. So they're throwing it in there saying this is the cost that the city should pay for that tree. If they can salvage it, they have said if a property owner wants them to try their best to salvage it, then they will try to salvage it. But they're identifying anything that they feel like is going to have that impact. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, no,
in the ballpark?
Yeah.
So one thing we would like council to consider as part of this too, to your point, whether we pay them out or the contractor was to reinstall the fencing. If it's still identified in that 99-foot right of way, we need to have them sign something acknowledging that that right of way still exists. So that if in some future point, they needed to utilize the full 99 feet, we wouldn't find ourselves in the position that we are right now, essentially. So we would need council's direction on what does that look like and get Brody's input on that. On if they do put infrastructure back in that 99 feet, are we okay with that? Is that permissible? Do they want to still use that? Because according to UDOT standards, they would put the infrastructure at the. Yes. So we, we recognize the impact to those residents is fairly significant, some of them. And if they want to utilize that space as yard, that's up to the council to make that determination, but we do need that direction from you on that. How to move forward with that.
so are you saying that you want the council to, as part of the action on this, to say whether or not the residents can use that section that's not being utilized?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
With acknowledgement that we might use it later.
And then it's my understanding of that too, is that this, like, there can't be any other negotiation, so even though there's residents that haven't been contacted about it, well, they haven't been contacted because they don't have this to talk about, right? So they can't say, well, this is what we have today, and then have a negotiation back and forth. That can't be done, so that's.
So with those questions asked earlier about, the validity of the property lines, what would this do? What implications? If this were approved, would that have if they were to come back and say, yeah, this is, not the correct understanding of these lines, and now there's property disputes along with it. What does that entail?
So if there were actual properties that had to be purchased, there is a threshold according to UDOT standards that require a full appraisal. So if the value of the property and the infrastructure totals more than $15,000, we have to do a full appraisal on those properties, and that would have to come back to council. If it's less than the full appraisal amount, they can do an administrative memo to pay out that difference. So it just depends on how much those determinations came back, how much property would be affected, or if it is at all. This is what the team presented earlier as part of the work session, where they believe the property line is, and they've identified the impact to the residents. There are some, at least 2 properties we're aware of that are not affected. The property line is right at the 80-foot right of way. So we don't have ACE appraisals. We don't have the temporary construction easements for those properties.
And there was only like 5, right?
There are 5 that don't line up.
The property line goes out past the line, I think. Okay. Out of what, 15?
15.
Mhm. So anyway, so do you have any more discussion?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just hard. So, and what I'm hearing is they're really not gonna go back and look at anything that could be more context sensitive. Or do we have a final say in the design of the context sensitive design? Given the role, its nature, and the obstructions that exist at choke points along the road. That they are gonna, that's the design that got approved by somebody, and that's the design they're gonna do.
Talking about the design of the road.
Right, the road width. Regardless of 99 or 80 feet.
Can I help answer that?
Go ahead.
I'll see if I can help a little bit, but I think that we have to, like I said before in the work sessions, some of the stuff we have to be considerate of is you have a grant that's been issued to do that road, right? So then when UDOT comes to steps in fee, they're gonna set minimum standard as to what's available there, and I don't know how much control we have as a city council or as local government to overrule what those UDOT standards are. And so I think that is gonna overrule what we can do. Now, I think with this particular line item that we're discussing, the right of way statements, I think is part of that approval process. And Jenny, you can, I'm wrong on this, but I think you could say, you know, we're approving this right of way statement, but contingent on this, and this, that they meet with the residents and discuss that and come up with a settlement regarding their property line and whatever else. So, at least that's how I see it.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah, great explanation. The discussion tonight is not the design of the road. It's not the width of the road. The just compensation statements are authorizing the property acquisition team to make and initiate contact and talk about financial impact to the residents. That's what's on for this discussion.
So as far as the neighbors along the road. At least, when I just got into it in January. Was there a public hearing and discussion before the road design took place with those people on the road to find out their concerns?
No, because the environmental report didn't identify any property acquisition. Like, we weren't buying properties, unlike Larson Lane, where we purchased property on almost every parcel to widen Larson Lane. Both sides, there are very few parcels that were not affected by the project. And because of that, the environmental report came back and UDOT requirements mandate that you have an open house when you're impacting. This environmental document did not identify that property based on the survey results. Obviously, we chose to have an open house and to open this dialogue because we were getting a lot of questions about the project. I'm of the mind that any road project we do from here on out, we have an open house. Once that environmental document is completed, but for this project, no, we did not do that because it was not a requirement.
So if we were to take action tonight and we're found that those lines exist, would we be able to undo what's been done and open it up for a public hearing? Or do we need to wait until that's settled before we make a decision? Meaning that we wouldn't be able to have a public hearing because it's already been approved.
Can I get some clear? You're asking for a public hearing on what specifically? The design of the project?
So the Beaver County surveyor, in conversations, there's a question about certain laws, especially dealing with the federal.
Yeah, no, I was here for the work session.
Yeah, and so there's questions of what there had to, according to what was explained to Marv, was explained to others who were there. There was talk that if it had not been used, and it's on the burden of the city to show that that easement has been used for public travel, that the current state of the road became the public easement. That's under the 1976 Act. And so if that's the case, and now that is the boundary, and we're talking about widening the road, and we make the decision here tonight, are we going to remove the citizen's right to a public hearing? If we take action on said cause tonight.
I understand all the issue, but like, what would the public hearing be about?
Well, the public hearing would be about the acquisition of property. Isn't that what you just brought up?
Well, my why the original public hearing was given important. Not saying that it's not true because of environmental impact, it's saying before that is even considered, what is the content sensitive aspect of that road? And what are its physical impacts and design impacts to those around it and to the transportation as a whole? And then based on that, the design is created on that input.
So your public hearing is about the design of the project that's already designed.
Right, saying
Right.
because
Your
there was
public hearing is about the acquisition.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Okay, so to your point, if through the survey team and everyone, and ultimately it would be through judicial determination, if it got that far, that the property line is X versus Y, and there did require essentially a property acquisition team, you would roll all of it back and then you would redo everything because the grant would be obsolete. And then, yes, you could have all the public hearings you want because you have a project, but a lot of those things would have to go by.
Okay, that's what I was just asking.
Yeah, so, sorry, Ed. I was just trying to understand exactly what this public hearing is, because as I understand the discussion is to start to approve the acquisition team's ability to communicate with property owners. There's still a lot of communication, and there's a whole bunch of surveys from 1853 and some act that a surveyor thinks is lawful. There's a big discussion about that. But that's kind of, to me, like, not, and I'm not meaning that it's less important. That's not what we're talking about right now. That the acquisition team has to have a mechanism to start discussions and look at property lines and values, fences, and X, Y, and Z. But they can't start anything until the council sends it in motion.
No, I understand
But
that.
it doesn't preclude those issues that you brought out at all. You're not saying go and you have no right, because if there is a surveyor question or if there is a legal question about what the title of the property is, that always can be brought by both the homeowner and or the city or any entity that has standing.
As far as your question.
Any other questions, discussion? No?
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
Make a motion, I have to find my words here. To approve the right-of-way statements of just compensation for the West Harrisville Road Project as presented.
Awesome.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
This is a roll call.
Shall we do a roll call?
Yes, roll call. Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
Councilman Fawcett?
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery? No. Councilman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman Hadley? Let's see. It's now 3 yeas and 2 noes. So that moves it down. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to approve ordinance 568 for meeting amendments. Jack's going to present that.
Mayor and council, so this was brought up by Councilman Montgomery during the last meeting, where our code states that we would have 2 council meetings a month. Under the proposed schedule, it was adopted last month, and what we've been doing in the past is 1 council meeting, and that has happened since COVID. So this document is just changing that to 1 council meeting a month and a second as needed. And then also it's updating section 3, which is just to align the state code for the closed executive sessions. So it's to approve to match with the schedule we've done for 1 council meeting, and then a little bit of verbiage change if the 1 meeting falls on a holiday that we still have the whole meeting. That we reschedule according to state law.
Any questions? I have a motion to approve the changes that have been made for the ordinance 568.
I'll make the motion as we approve the ordinance 568 with the amended things that need to happen.
And we have a motion to second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call. Okay, Councilman Hadley,
Yes.
Councilman Wilhelmsen,
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery,
yes.
Councilman Fawcett, I'm sorry, I haven't quite figured that when I use all that.
Yes.
I mean, I don't, I can say Councilman Fawcett. Councilman Christensen?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
I don't get offended if you call me one.
Okay. So the next item on our agenda is emergency management discussion. And I brought this up just because I was somewhere and it all came to my mind because I'm thinking if we have some kind of emergency in Harrisville, I didn't want to have people knocking at my door in the wee hours of the morning, not know what the process was. So being a new mayor, I was instructed that Jack Fogal is our emergency management guru. And so he's gonna have a discussion with us and let us all know what the processes are in place, and what we have that's good, what maybe not be so good, and all that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll start with, in August of 2025, we partnered with the county and all the municipalities and other governmental organizations to do our FEMA pre-disaster mitigation plan. So this plan identifies what risks we have as a city and what measures we can take. The benefit to this plan is it opens up new grant opportunities. So Glenn Gamble and I have been working on grants for possibly upgrading stormwater infrastructure throughout the city, possibly grants for the new building or a command center that could function on our plan for our EOC. It was an extensive document. We worked on it for about 3 years. It had to go back and forth to the state with FEMA and back to us several times for approval. In September of 2025, Northview Fire adopted and we along with them adopted the Community Wildfire Preparedness Plan. So this plan shows the steps that we would partner with Northview Fire during case of a fire, shows where our high risk areas are, and what activities we could do to help mitigate those. Our current emergency operations plan was adopted in 2010. I'm in the process of updating that. It's taken a little bit, but also adding a continuity of operations plan. So we would update that to the new NIM standards. That way, we have it written down with updated terminology and assignments of where people would be in the case of an emergency, how we'd activate our EOC, how incidents would be handled. That is just provide a template. If we have a police emergency, that would differ from a public works emergency. So this is more of just a framework to help to make sure that we know the processes and we're just kind of aware of what we need to do. In December, we adopted the active shooter MOU, and we do have trainings for that. There is one next week where we'll be partnering with the North Ogden, Pleasant View, and Northview Fire, and we'll be doing training with that. We currently had somebody ask about GETS, so that's the Governmental Emergency Telecommunication Service. So we have FirstNet, which is the same thing, it operates through AT&T, and we have a local tower. So we will have priority communications if they're jammed. That way, Public Works, the police, and I believe Mayor, your assigned phone also has it, so you can be in the loop with what's going on. We have a ham radio in the basement. It is tested quarterly. We do that in conjunction with Weber County. That way we can be in contact if it's a wide scale emergency. Training, so all of our section chiefs identified in the plan have to take ICS trainings of 100C, 200C, 700B, 800D, 300, and 400 at a minimum. Others will take more specific based on their role, such as Assistant Chief Nick Taylor is the PIO for the police department. So he has taken ICS 29, which is PIO basics, and he's working on his requirements to be sent to Maryland to do a more advanced PIO training, which is fully covered by FEMA under grants. All staff completes ICS 100C, 200C, and 700B, which are NIMS intro basics. That way they're aware of our command structure, what would need to happen in an emergency, and just kind of basic information like that. We have a fire evacuation plan that was updated in conjunction with the accreditation with the police department. We have done drills along with Northview Fire coming in and teaching everybody how to use fire extinguishers, teach CPR, and the proper use of an AED. We have mutual aid agreements in place with the county and neighboring cities, as well as religious groups. So we partnered with the LDS Church, Brett Brown as the state emergency manager. So I work with him. We have plans for if we have an emergency and need to house people at the churches that are in agrees that we could do that, as well as the Ascension Lutheran Church with their pastor. Visit, we are looking at grant opportunities. Overall, we are prepared to handle routine to medium emergencies. If we have a large scale emergency that impacted the entire county or state, we don't have the resources to handle that. We would have to rely on outside teams with FEMA that would come in. If it's a Weber County size emergency, we would probably have to rely on state resources to help us as well.
Okay. Any questions for Jack?
It's all very clear.
Yeah, just take those courses and see how clear it is.
Yeah, if you want to, a lot of these ICS courses are free. If you just Google them, they're up on FEMA, you can take them on your computer. Some of them do require you to travel to places. So ICS 300 and 400, you have to go to a classroom setting and you're there for a week. It can be a lot of information for those.
So different than my green cert hat, so you're saying.
A little bit, but you're welcome to do those.
Well, thank you, Jack, for that. Next item on our agenda is the discussion of possible action for 1750 North change order to run Pineview line and fire hydrant to Northview. Jenny's gonna present that.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a little bit of an update. We met this afternoon, our team with UDOT and their requirement to use an existing line that is running from the east side of Highway 89 to the west side of Highway 89. This has been an abandoned line from previous drainage on the golf course. And now that the golf course is being developed, it's being abandoned and will no longer be needed. We have identified an opportunity to run the Pineview pressurized secondary water across the highway and down 1750 North to provide that service on the the west side of the highway. Through that meeting today, they identified specific requirements that they want met for that, particularly to protect the highways so that that line never collapses and creates an issue in the roadway. So the estimate that was included in your packet is no longer accurate. The new estimate is $140,000, $598 total. For that includes the casing that is being required and some fill, depending on what the contractor identifies that they can utilize to run that line. The fire hydrant being provided is to service Northview's new station off of 1750. We want to be able to run that fire hydrant before we pour asphalt and finish off our roadway. We don't want to have any infrastructure necessary after our roadway is complete. It is staff's proposal that we use the GOEO, the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity funds. We received a grant and those funds can cover this change order. We have an open contract with Online Utility who gave us this estimate, did the other utility work on the road. And so we're just asking permission for them to continue and run this line, Pineview line and run the hydrant.
Any questions or discussion? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion, for the 1750 North change order to run Pineview line and fire hydrants to Northview.
Motion is second. All in favor? Be roll call.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going back to Councilman.
Mayor, your roll call votes have to be random. They can't be in order.
Oh, thanks, Brody.
I said that a while ago, but I threw a lot at you when I said that, so. I was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Fawcett,
Yes.
Councilman Wilhelmsen,
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery.
Yeah.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hadley,
Yes.
You did that so well.
Thank you. My apologies for not being more clear on that, Brad.
That's okay, I will think that. Let's see. Item number H, discussion and possible action to adopt Rocky Mountain Power Agreement for the transformer on City Hall and Public Safety Building. Jenny's gonna present that as well.
Thank you, Mayor. This agreement was included in your packet. This is a pretty straightforward agreement with Rocky Mountain Power for our transformer to serve to provide power services to the City Hall and PD.
So is there any differentiation in that? The reason I ask is because there's, the one comment is after 3 years, they may reduce.
So
I mean,
that's,
yeah, so may doesn't mean they're gonna have to reduce it if we're using less power, so, well, we'll consider it.
typically they give us a credit if other people come on board with that transformer. So that is not uncommon for those agreements to include the opportunity if there's other services that connect to our transformer, then they can adjust that. They don't charge us quite so much.
But they don't have to do that under this language.
Correct.
And then the other part was where it says after 5 years, they'll bill us the higher of the forward 1,450 or 80% of the billing. It's not like, wow. Everything is all based on their favorability, not based on our
That's
usage.
during the 5 years, during the first 60 months.
Yes, 16 months, yeah.
So that's the 5 years. So it's during that time.
Yeah, during that minimum billing time. Because the first was 3 years, they may reduce, but 5 years will still be paying, even though we may not be using all that power, we'll still pay that additional base and then 80% of the billing. That's why I'm just wondering if this, we have any negotiation, it's just take it or leave it.
We're fairly dependent on them for power.
Well, yeah, no, they're awesome.
I can answer that. It's Rocky Mountain Power.
But I would say
I'm
that,
not saying your assessment is wrong. The agreements, could we go back to that? Yes, I would take. They would most likely tell us to go away. And even if we did negotiate it, it would be ideal.
and they have been working with us. They've already ordered our needs for that building. So they actually asked for a meeting to make sure that we were only getting what we actually need for the project. They wanted to base some information off what we're using with our public works, but we just don't feel comfortable moving forward, particularly if this building is going to be used as an EOC in the future. But we didn't want to downgrade any power opportunities with the building.
Yeah, I don't know about that, just so that language is all beneficial for them and not for us.
If that would be typical.
Well, if we delay it.
Like, yeah,
Delay in the construction project too, which then costs.
And their business purpose.
So including the power, so, and fire department comes in,
Yes.
or others.
It's a 3-phase.
Yes, that was one of the parts of our discussion with them is we know that Northview might be having to provide some additional power for their building as well.
Didn't they need to say, Jenny, that they also, there's a potential for like HHI to be able to use something off of that, or we could possibly use it.
So HHI, also known as Entity X, that owns the property to the south of 1750 North, they have intentions of expanding their commercial and manufacturing areas, and they will need to tie into that transformer as well. I don't know if that would happen in the
In the 5-year
Right.
payment.
Any other discussion? Nor can we have a motion?
So I'll make a motion to adopt the Rocky Mountain Power Agreement for the transformer on the City Hall Public Safety Building.
Motion, we have a second.
A second.
We have a motion in a second. So roll call. Councilman Montgomery,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Fawcett,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Wilhelmsen,
Yes.
and Councilman Hadley.
Yes.
All three, yeah. Consent. Sorry. So item I is discussion possible action to approve City Hall public safety perimeter fence. Again, Jennie's gonna cover that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll do a very brief review of what was adopted previously in November with the contract with the RNO for the City Hall and Police Department. We approved add alternate one as the Sally Port. With that approval, we approved it up to $620,000, and then we made some modifications to that. This is a follow-up to those modifications. The best estimate RNO Construction can give us for the reduced costs of the Sally Port will bring it down to $590,000. They don't want to be held to that exact dollar, but that was their best estimate. What we've identified is the perimeter fence would put us over the 620. So we're actually asking for approval for the perimeter fence alone. Their estimate from RNO is $82,000 for that perimeter fence.
So when you say perimeter fence, are you talking perimeter of the project? Are you talking perimeter of the parking lot? Are you talking about perimeter of the police station, secure area for their cars? Which perimeter are we talking about?
It's the perimeter, and my apologies, I didn't think to bring the map, but it goes north from the edge of the northeast corner of the building up to it would be in line with the Public Works fence that comes east. That would be extended east at its current location. And then the new City Hall from the Sally Port north, it would connect that corner, so it would not include any of that parking lot, the public parking lot to the east. And then it would have a vehicle gate on the south and the welded wire fencing on the south end to match the Public Works building. And it would come up, there's also a small public parking lot
In front.
Yeah.
So
So
the gate's already designed.
the gate is already in the design. All of this was already in the design. We pulled it out when we went to bid as an alternate because we were concerned with costs. Though at this point, we're asking for it to be added back as its own item at $82,000, which is the estimate of the RNO contractor. So obviously, if that comes back higher than that, when we go to put it in, we'll be back. Let you know.
So I'd like to just review that, where we're going over the amount, very, basically $600,000. Very small. Mark, can you give me any information of the importance of the fence? You know, I vaguely remember talking about it, why it was so important. It's a continuing perimeter, basically, for people around the center point, is that what that is?
Not just the selling point, that goes around all the secure parking from the city. It just creates that buffer where people have, I mean, obviously it's not gonna keep everyone out, but it's that buffer. It takes more to get into that area where the police are transferring people in and out of the Sally Port, or employees are going in and out of the building. It's that secure area.
Okay, any other questions? No questions? Could I have a motion?
I'm gonna float one and just see where it goes. I make a motion to approve the offense, subject to the total cost not exceeding the original cost. We talked about 600,000, what it was discussed in November.
Well, we already know what's going to be over that. She's asking
with 2,000 per head. That's my motion. I just see where it goes.
We have a motion. Any seconds? Okay, so that motion fails. We have another motion.
I'm struggling with the 82,000. I understand the need, but I'm just struggling with the cost. I understand we proved it once before, but it was only 600,000, so I just not sure. I understand where it's needed. It's more of a cost element at this point in time than anything. And it's a way of maintaining what we have been working with, trying to keep within our budget. These are incidentals that are coming up, and that's the biggest concern that I have. It's an extra, it's an extra $80,000, but they can come back from more. Then it's another 20 or 30. I understand construction costs, but I just try to maintain our part of the faith. The public security. And then put in yes, put in money, yes. It's easier to put it in there. Understand them, just struggle. Not sure what to say. Does that make sense? It's a money issue, where
So is it helpful to note that the Sally report is now $30,000 lower than what we anticipated? Cost on the Sally report? Based on their best estimates, that's what they're anticipating.
And what's 620 now? It's 590, right?
Yeah, so the actual decision has to us.
So the original cost was 620.
That's what you approved, up to 620. So we made those modifications.
All right.
So the fence originally wasn't in the original improvements, or like the approved amount, right?
Well, it was moving very quickly, trying to solidify the bits within the time frame that we have. And so we made some assumptions on the staff's part that it could come, that it would be included in that 620. But the modifications to the Sally report aren't as significant as we thought they would be for the cost savings. We're not building out the interior of the animal control because we won't be using that. But that cost savings didn't come down quite as we anticipated. So it was a difference above and beyond the 620, so we came back to get approval.
Is there something we can do to keep the fence at 30,000?
We would have to look at what fencing options we have and whether it was a full privacy versus, I mean, certainly you can put fencing in for $30,000, but would it meet the intent of security? Would it meet the height requirements? That I don't have a great answer for that.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I guess if we've approved 620,000. I guess is there a way we can stay around that and we're going as the construction company trying to save costs of things. And that's a nebulous out there. We've already known that from the previous building. It just, you don't know where it's going to end. I'm just trying to be as conservative as I possibly can to try to stay within the budgets we're trying to allow. And if we have some wiggle room, fine. I'm having a hard time. If you say 30,000, that's still $50,000 more that you're asking for.
Yes.
Yeah. Essentially, that's what it is. It's $50,000 more. And what's the other factors that we're still having in here from R&L that we don't know?
Well, they'll hold to their bid, their original contract. Anything that was included in the original contract is already set. So if prices increase, then they have to make adjustments on their side. But because of the unique nature of how we approved this, we are coming back because we know the perimeter fence exceeds what you've already approved.
So where is the money come from? I guess it's the bottom line.
It would be from the bonds.
2,000 more from the bond.
Okay. That's another $50,000 to the bottom.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone entertaining the motion?
We gotta have a fence, but I don't know if we need an $80,000 fence.
50,000 more.
I know,
Yeah,
Okay.
total cost.
we have to be safe, we have to have events.
And is the cost, I realize we have criteria we have to meet, but is that to make it match the existing fence?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can definitely look into options of different fencing if that's the preference of the council.
Maybe just one thought on that is what you'd be concerned about in terms of matching is your street presence. So what does it look along 1750? But when you get in the backyard, in the kind of work area, does that material matter as much as having a secure fence? You know, if there's, you got classic design up front, you got the utility fence in the back that still meets our safety needs.
So there is a public presence from this fence from the parking lot. The public parking lot is on the east side of this fence.
So currently in the building we have now, there's no fence in there.
This
Like
current
this.
situation, we have no fence. Well, we have a property line fence, sorry.
But I mean, I guess it's what
We have no
you consider a secure fence, right? So if we're putting in a secure one over there, what's the need for that compared to what we had here? Why? And then is it I mean, like, in the public works building, one of my complaints was that we put in electric gates that cost a lot of money. And yet for the first while, they were always open. I mean, is it something where you're putting an electric gate in this one that maybe you don't need? I mean, that's the only thing I would bring up.
So on the electric gate part of it, they are keeping them closed now, and we are not gonna replace the fence in between Public Works and the police department. Those gates will remain closed, which would take away the necessity from that extra fence that goes in between us.
So what about accessing from like this secure area that we're talking? Could you access the secure area off of the two gates that we have and not have a gate in there, or just have a manual gate? Or is there a manual gate? I mean, I haven't seen the whole design plan of that fence, so.
That would create a response concern with the police if they're behind that fence, and they would have to go. They would have to go through the public works before they could respond out onto 1750.
And I don't think it lessens the safety issue if they have to get out of their car to open the fence, then they're distracted if somebody's there. You're not opening the fence, I think that creates a bigger issue.
I mean, this building that we're in now is horrible for it.
It is.
You got a stairwell that you're coming out, there's a mirror on there, but I mean, they're just ambush points. right?
No,
If
exactly.
you look at the news, that these things happen more and more. I mean, the police are getting targeted,
Yes.
so we haven't had an incident, but trust me, we have one that's gonna cost a lot more than that fence did.
That's pretty cool.
I'm just asking questions about,
Yeah, sure.
maybe look at different things where you might build steps at night.
That's all I'm doing, understanding me, much another one. I'm just trying to make sure that.
Well, I think we built this building to the, it needs to grow, but I don't think there's a lot in there that's extra.
Is this a decision that has to be made tonight? Is it something that we can get? I mean, I would love to know other alternatives. I would love to know what options we do have and to be able to think about and talk about.
Well, I think you could do a motion that says that we table but give direction to the staff on what you want to see.
But I think I think that would be my motion, is that we table this 1 month with the ability for staff to be able to look at alternatives and present alternatives to the council so that we can make a decision based on not just one subset of data, but all subsets of data regarding the fence, and then make the decision with that.
Okay, so we have a motion.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. A roll call vote. Councilman Hadley.
Yes.
You don't need a roll call.
You don't need a roll call, you certainly can call for one if you want to.
I'm gonna do it now.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. Councilwoman Fawcett,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Montgomery.
Yes.
And Councilman Wilhausen.
Yes.
All right, so we have, item number 6 is mayor, council, and staff follow-up. The last month I didn't do staff follow-up, so I'm gonna start with staff. So I don't know,
We'll go first. I only have a couple items, if that's okay.
yep,
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Jack hit on the active shooter training that we'll be doing this month. It'll be actually at Orion Junior High. That's our first training as a group with the new MOU, so we're pretty excited about that. We've got a schedule built out with trainings for what, 2 years now, Nick?
The first 12 months.
Yeah, okay, for the first 12 months. The second thing we're gonna be involved in the next little bit is the House bill that governs school safety is putting guardians in schools. A guardian is a employee of the school that can carry and respond. So they need 15 hours of training, firearms training. We will be participating and helping to train those people in the next month. So
so is that gonna help with offsetting the time that we spend officers over there, or still have to do that?
Wouldn't that be nice?
that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother discussion.
I just thought I'd ask.
So, does that also include Evergreen, or is that just Orion and Mystic?
As far as the guardians,
Uh-huh.
I don't think that the charter schools have any guardians, not that I've heard of yet. There may be some in Ogden. The sheriff's office has a position that's mandated by that bill that they have to fund, that's in charge of all those. So I don't know about all the other charter schools. I know we haven't been approached by anybody from Greenwood yet. And the training is not just for our schools, it's a group thing, so, we don't know if they're gonna be from Majestic, Orion or what, but they're asking for volunteers to come and help participate in that training.
Okay. Thank
That's all
you,
I have tonight.
Director 5.
Thank you. So for spring cleanup, we're looking at April 22nd to the 25th, which is a Wednesday through Saturday. These dates coincide with our spring street sweeping efforts, so we can use those dumpsters as well for that. I just want to get an idea of what you want to offer. Is it household? Is it just green waste? For the last two, I believe we just did the green waste. Spring of 25, we were $3,800. In the fall of 25, we were $3,000 for just the green waste. So just want to get an idea of what you'd like to offer.
One quick question on green waste. Do we send it to somewhere to recycle like compost with the green waste, or is it just?
Waste management takes it away.
Oh, okay.
We do.
Yeah, they take it away.
So more than likely it goes to the number transfer.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is continue to do green waste.
Just green waste.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Just so it's kind of on your radar, there was a discussion on where the funds for this will be taken up. Right now, it's kind of slated for the garbage fund, right? General garbage fund for the spring cleanup. I think that's where the money is, but there was some conversation as far as if that should be garbage fund or general fund. Because, some people may not use the dumpsters and stuff during that time frame. So that's just something to think about for this next budget year. But right now, I believe it's coming out of the garbage fund. I just want to make sure I'm bringing back answers that were questioned of me earlier or in the past. So on December 9th, council approved surplus of an unoperable factor.
Councilmember Jackson asked about the best way to surplus that tractor. Staff has decided that taking the whole unit to an auction is the best way to dispose of it and likely bring the highest dollar amount back to the city on that. And that auction does accept non-running machinery and is held around May. So that's the plan with that tractor. I spoke briefly with the mayor about a resident question that I had about recycle bins and whether or not that would be something that the city would be interested in offering. Did a little bit of homework for a 30-yard container. For glass, it would be about $450 per dump, and cardboard would be $180 per dump. So just maybe think about that, entertain it, bring it back up to me if it's something you want to move forward with. It's been a while since we've been able to talk about things. So Santa at the Cabin, we had December 12th. I updated those who were at the budget work session a little bit, but December's a long ways away, but as an events person, we start planning now. So the parade was really, really good. We added the Grinch this year. That's a huge success. My report on the meet and greet is not so much. My go-to saying is for the people who attend, have a good time. If you want to look at numbers, there was not a lot of numbers there. So there's a couple of options I'd like to entertain, and of course, looking for your recommendation, but possibly moving the parade portion to Saturday instead of Friday and hold that after the Shop with a Hero event, and either not do the meet and greet Friday or continue to do the meet and greet Friday and just move the parade. A couple of issues we run into the parade is lighting as it gets darker. We can't start any sooner because school's not out yet and the kids aren't home. And then we also need to start adding more subdivisions and miles, right, to the parade. So I think it makes sense to move that to Saturday where parents are home. Easy to do that. I've already got the Grinch and Santa scheduled for 2026, but I need to know now if we want to make some changes to that. So either ideas now or if you want to revisit it.
I think it makes sense to decide. Maybe for us, be more inclusive than.
That's after Shop with a Hero, right?
It would be,
Yep. I think that's a good idea.
yeah, the Grinch will already be there, Santa's already there. We can just roll right into that. Thoughts on the meet and greet Friday night, and we have moved, so you know that the date, we moved earlier in the month, later in the month, the different day of the week. We've altered the times by an hour or two, just the participation numbers seem to be the same, it's just not a lot there.
Can you remind us of participation numbers?
I'm talking like 20 families, if that, and not everybody takes a donut or a candy cane, so we, you know.
So there'd be 20 families that are rated 4 or just.
Yeah, 2 to 4, right? Kids per family, maybe.
What's the cost of that?
Budget for that is about $650. Yeah, we're,
That could be problems with parade or something.
oh, for sure, yeah.
So
The thought that I had was, you know, I'm sure you talked about moving. You know, what is the area in the park as far as the powering is always a central area. I also know it's cold at the same time there. Is there any way to do something like that? Conversated where it would be a little bit better per key, a little bit better in Wednesday or Saturday. Or something like that.
The meet and greet.
Meet and greet after the 7th grade.
Well, parking, I can tell you parking's really never been an issue for the meet and greet cabin because there's not a lot. But I mean, I'll do whatever you want.
I just speculated with this throwing out ideas, that's all right.
Okay.
So you direct.
You're working for.
Well, yeah, the next one or two,
We vote no.
We just need 3 of us to say yes.
yeah.
I'm with Councilman Fawcett, that if you could cancel the meet and greet if it's that low in attendance. Saves the city some money because there's other options out there if someone wants to go visit Santa.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's what I would personally want, so.
Okay. Sounds good, thank you.
So speaking of events, I just have some annual, we like to put dates on the schedule at the beginning of the year, so everybody knows what to plan on, and if you want to make changes, of course, we can do that. So the Easter egg hunt's gonna be Saturday, April 4th. That'll be at 10 a.m. That's always a Saturday before Easter. Who's in the park, we've got down for Friday, June 12th. And July 31st. We flex those days around holiday weekends, staff availability, and coordinating alternator weekends with the other cities that we're involved with when we do that. Fall festival would be October 20th. And a reminder that the fireworks have already been paid for. On that, we always pay a year in advance to receive discounts, so that's already been taken care of. And then Santa, the parade would go from December 11th just to December 12th, 2026.
Did you say the movie in the park isn't super well attended anymore?
That's accurate. I mean, there's so many elements that go into it, weather and mosquitoes and the heat, the temperature, the movie title. You know, we try to stay on the low end as far as movie rates, so we buy $600 movies for it, right? So we can spend up to $1,200 or $1,500, so. It, you know, some of the other cities show a little better movie, but that doesn't really matter because we try to alternate, you know, Fridays, so we don't double up on movie nights, but it just depends.
Do we, I mean, other than coordinating with the dates, do we ever team up with the other cities to get maybe a better movie, or is it just?
We have not done that, to answer your question. We've not done that.
Is that something that you feel like is still a benefit to the community? Doing much for them?
Again, like the people that come have a great time, like that's my go-to phrase.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can have an area of grass that there's not a piece of grass left with blankets, and then there's others where there's literally 5 families there.
Right.
Mine's one of them.
We'll have Jason and his community bring food trucks.
Yep.
It's community gathering.
Yeah. So anyway, those are the dates. If you make changes, so be it.
So just one question. So you said the fireworks are already purchased for the fall festival. So if something comes up like it's 250th celebration, can those fireworks be moved to that, or if we wanted to do something that'd be an extra order?
No, that would be dependent on their schedule, but certainly worth a phone call and seeing if we could adjust that date. Yeah. I don't see a problem with it, but.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. I would just add to the firework that sooner than later for that, if everybody's around the same time, the firework provider might not be available depending on what we're going to do our celebration. I only have one item for council. It's the spring conference for the League of Cities and Towns. It's this year, April 22nd through 24th in St. George. If you'd like to attend, please let myself or Jack know fairly quickly. The hotel fills up. We like to give the discounted rate. We don't actually stay at the convention center. We stay close by, but it's a more affordable housing option for that. So please let us know shortly if you plan to attend that, so we can get arrangements made for you. 22nd begins Wednesday, the 22nd, and ends Friday.
Okay, how about council? Maybe Jason might have something.
Well, we've just started in some of the America 250. We don't have a date planned yet. It's not going to be sometime in July, but there's been talk. There's been some reaching out that's been going on about possibly making it a greater Tri-City celebration. I don't know how I feel about that, but Shanna Edwards has approached me and wants to serve on or at least has volunteered some ideas for things on for that. And so we're still looking for anyone else who wants to join. But that's where we're at. We don't have a large committee.
I know several of the meetings I've been in with the mayors, you know, Steve Gibson's really pushing kind of through Jenny Taylor, doing like a neighborhood luncheon, or like, so instead of being like a city function, it would be one specific day all done together. You would have like block parties where they did potlucks and all that. And I know that there's also discussion that sometimes, even though you might love your neighbor, maybe you don't love their food.
Or their hygiene.
So, you know, well, if you want to eat their food, but I mean, I get all those things. I know every city, North Ogden, Pleasant View, I know Harrisville, we have a grant that's been issued to us. Was it like $1,200 or something? Yeah, and I, you know, listening to the different mayors from all the different cities. I mean, South Ogden Mayor Porter, he's like, I don't know what they're gonna do something. We'll put some advertising, but it's kind of like real well thought out. And then some of the other ones haven't even thought about it yet. Some of them haven't even applied for the grant yet. And then, so we're a little ahead of the game getting the grant, but then,
Well, just to let you know, Shannon Edwards talked about the possibility of utilizing different parts of our city, having places that families could go and either do activities or kind of learn kind of a thing. And I thought that would be a great option, and then come back around for that old fashioned community. I wouldn't call it the Great American Cookie, not cookout, but you know, just your backyard party, you know, get meet out at the park. But that's just where we have preliminary, still trying to get other people involved. And hopefully
I know one thing is when we're moving along that planning side, the staff would really like to know so they know what to plan for.
We got to
So
get a date, but right now I'm one person. So
I know.
I volunteer Angie as tribute.
Listen, the councilwoman Fawcett.
Whole thing. We got the barbels back there too.
I saw his eyes perk up when said that, Chuck.
Last time we was asked to do a dinner though, they wanted us to come outrageously bonded.
So any other council comments?
I've got one. I'd like to go back to the budget that we worked on, the workshop. There were a couple comments that made me think about how we need to incorporate in as we're planning and trying to balance a budget. And that was one that Brian talked about. He made the comment, he says, with the staff he's got, he cannot progress any further. And I don't know if you remember that. I just think that as we're looking at the budget and we're trying to maintain and hold to the budget is what we do and maintain our tax rate. I think progressively, we have to also look at this expansion that's going on, such as if we want to develop and put a committee together with Parks and Recreation, that's going to be, we listen to what's being developed as far as something out with the golf course project. You know, that's going to involve more personnel. It's going to be the same thing for police department. And so I think we need to adjust into our budgets where we can stand. Yeah, we can bear back, but we also need to look at the other side. How much is it going to cost to hire another person for for either Parks and Recreation or for Public Works or for Police Department? And I think that needs to be, I don't know what your council members feel about that, but I think that's just as a critical part of progressively working the budget that fits, making sure that we are taking care of the needs of the city. I know we have to stay within our means, but at the same time, we need to make sure we're adjusting as we grow. It's just, what's your feelings on that? So as we look at budget, I throw that out. I think that's an important part. And I think that's something that I encourage to see what the cost is for the person that has to go how the budget works.
Well, one question I have is, do we have a goal for our budget? That we identify goals, so we know what we're trying to achieve with our budget.
Yeah, and I think that goes right along with what you're saying. You asked a lot of questions on that. And Brian got run over for the bus several times because they didn't have the answer. They didn't, but yeah, goals are important, but that's where I would follow this. What's in the goals? What are we looking at? 26, 27, as far as, taking care of our needs. We've got some great accolades that happened today. I'd like to continue that, everything else. All right,
Well, I think that, I mean,
that's my opinion.
somehow from my opinion as the mayor, I look at it and go, we don't need to fit into size 50 jeans if we're only a size 42. So we don't want to spend for bigger pants than we need to be in right now, but.
And I agree, I'm not looking at that, but.
So we just, I mean, I think it's as I'm seeing it, there's a lot of balancing that has to take place, so. We just can't keep overspending or spending more, asking for more back from whatever avenue we have, so.
And I appreciate that, and I know that. So I'm not asking, you just maintaining, I just think we need to look at both sides of the coin and make sure that we're being fair to staff, we're being fair to our city, as well as taking care of our budget needs. So does that make sense where I'm coming from?
Yep.
It was just kind of hit me, it's, wait a minute. I don't want to do backwards, I'd like to maintain at least, but at the same time, turn the light on as we go forward.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if you're referencing my comment towards the end of the meeting where we brought the revenue versus the bottom line, but if you think about, when we looked at that bottom line, or when I looked at it, it was like 500,000 red. Now, talking to Jennie, there is some option or opportunity possibly where the revenue is gonna grow more than the bottom line is not gonna be quite so bad. But, go back to the constituents or the citizens of Harrisville and tell them you're gonna have to raise the property tax to cover a $500,000 nut. When we're only collecting $900,000 right now, that's a big, huge chunk.
Well, I agree.
So something else has to give, whatever that is that gives.
Yeah.
We just may have to go in and sharpen some pencils.
Which is fine. I just want to make sure we're not trying to cut, at the expense of what we're trying to at least maintain.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, any other council comments?
I'd like to go home.
Yeah, you'd like to, me too.
Just let you know the speakers are this one.
Okay, I just got two things, so I'm just gonna hand this out. And I gave Jack one already, and I think I gave Roy one too. As I was going around, I looked to notice that we have about 190 homes in Harrisville that have no zoning. And things took place in 2010, I think it was, where zoning was repealed for two areas of Harrisville City that are kind of connected in the north end of town, where we moved the R3 zone and the R16 zone. That has left these homes without a zoning designation or an ordinance to enforce if anything is taking place there, or if a fire takes place, how do I rebuild in an area that has no zoning? You can do non-conforming laws, but that just says you stay with your footprint. Because the other provisions are you try to conform to existing regulation. Well, we don't have an existing regulation, all repealed. So I see this as a potential problem, but right now I think it's a problem. Because either we haven't done our enforcement, because we wouldn't know how to enforce something we don't have a regulation for. Or someone wants to build, let's maybe build out. But if something happens, how do people build in those areas that don't have a zoning regulation? And so I've just kind of done some documentation on it to make up for those neighborhoods, the size of the lots. Most of them are all below 10,000 square feet. And this is our lowest zone we have, but it wouldn't cover these homes because they're smaller in lot sizes. And so I'd like to be able to have a recommendation for this on the planning commission that for them to take a look at it and come up with some alternatives of how do we approach this now. I know I asked Brody if we concurs, if we do have a problem that way, and I haven't wanted your opinion on that.
I still don't have a good answer for you,
Okay,
just to be flat out honest.
okay.
Yeah.
But I just see that's a gap we have. If you look on the zoning map, it says they're repealed. If you look in the ordinance, there is no reference to those. And how it was repealed, I don't know if there's any documentation, so.
Well, how about we
So that's just for information to consider, and then,
never put it on next month's agenda?
yeah,
Okay.
Did you know that there's a statute in state code that says if a house is destroyed or fire, they can rebuild to the original
correct,
footprint
yeah.
and type of
Yeah.
home. So there is some protection to the residents if there was a natural disaster to them. They would rebuild it.
But if they want to expand it, every building, now it is a standard company, yeah.
Okay, any other?
The other item, I'm sorry, that was good. One of the questions I had is looking at our fee structure. How does someone presently apply for a development agreement? What is that considered in the fee structure? Because presently just identify rezoning, text amendment, or general plan amendment. But if someone's coming and saying, I want to do a development agreement, what application and what is that fee for the development agreement?
The actual development agreement isn't called out in the fee schedule. It goes under the mixed use development, and those fees would fall under the subdivision when they apply for the subdivision. The project management team, they do have an agreement that people enter into when they apply for project management, that after the first committee meeting, they are billed for any additional meetings that they come to. So if they come and negotiate with the city, we pass that cost on to the developer for those meetings.
So there's not a real application fee to begin with then, because
The project management committee application will be,
and that's what.
well, there isn't an application fee to come to the first meeting.
Okay.
The city covers the cost of any person coming in wanting to talk about the property. And then if they come in a subsequent time, then we charge them the fees to the engineering fees, the cost to the city for those subsequent meetings.
Because in some of the projects, the development may not be a mixed use, it may just be a development agreement.
It's treated the same way.
Would it be helpful? It's treated as a mixed use?
It's treated the same way with the project management committee. They
Okay.
work through that process until they're ready to get preliminary plat approval, or if it's a development agreement to come get approved through the city council. And then we collect the subdivision costs, but as of our current fee schedule, we do not have anything in there that defines a fee for development agreement.
Do we have any track record of what our expenses have been as a city for projects that way?
For development agreements, we haven't pulled out those costs.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking right now, but do we have a way?
Well, we would have, certainly based on the Jones and Associates bills, we could pull out the city engineer fees, and now we have a contracted planner, we can pull out those fees.
And then just city staff costs.
And city staff costs, that's always a hard one, where we don't wear the same hat
Right.
for any given hour
Right.
of our job, so that's a really hard one, but the others, we do have hard costs numbers for.
But I'm just wondering if it would be a benefit to say, here is the application fee for a development agreement. Because it is something a little bit different than the subdivision itself. In the legal documents or whatever, Brody takes time reviewing and all that type of stuff. If it'd be better to just say, look, here's the fee, we've seen what our costs are. Here's the upfront fee, rather than trying to bill someone and do this and that, and this is the cost to make that application.
I think one of the difficulties with that is one, to approve a fee like that, we would have to do a study.
Correct.
Who knows how long that's gonna take. But the difficulty with the development agreement is the cost could vary on so much is that there would still be recoup costs for our engineers and all that, so just something to think about is, I think the development it would almost be like an application fee, because there's still gonna be varying costs that we're gonna have to recoup throughout the development agreement process.
I was just wondering if you've got a track record, to say, okay, this is what it costs.
But like I would say, just on my time, right, in the 3 that I worked on, it would vary by 20 hours. You know, depending on the size and the scope of the amendments and the changes and council's questions and kickback and research and different issues. So it would be, I think, really difficult to find a fee that would cover the entire process.
So maybe then at least there ought to be an application fee with the caveat, application fee when you want to come in. And then, in addition,
it would have to be
billable.
Yeah, it would have to be some structure like that.
Well, and there's, development agreements are legislative, right? They're not administrative, so we don't necessarily, I mean, outside of maybe a land use amendment, we have in our fee schedule that's identified, if you want to propose a land use amendment, we have a fee associated with that, but all other legislative, to my mind, I can't think of other legislative decisions that we have fees associated
Well,
with.
general plan amendment, text amendment.
Could do a fee. I think it would be actually a really complicated one for someone to study. But I think the fee would be like just an initial application type fee, because I think the process is too varied on time.
So it's all the other 300, so then, okay, let's do 300 once, whatever happens, as a bill.
But again, we would need a study to say, I think 300 is justified.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me like some of the, I mean, when I start talking to people outside of the city, they talk about how hard it is to do business with the city. That, you know, it seems to me like it's pretty good right now, where if I want to do a development agreement, or I want to do some kind of a development, I come into a project management meeting. I kind of outline what I want to do. I get some ideas of what I need to do. And then from there, we can establish, you know, a cost for that based on what you want to do. And yet, I don't know that we want to charge for that, just that preliminary.
Oh, no, not a
meeting, but like, once we know something's intact, if we're gonna do something, then I think we wanna collect some money for the expenses that are occurring. Just to have somebody come into a project planning meeting and throw out some ideas of what's gonna happen with this development, I think we wanna offer some of that stuff, but no charge.
Right, and I'm not talking about that discussion, about, I'm saying, there's an actual talking to me, this is what I want to have happen. Submitting that document, then here's the application fee. Right, just throwing that out.
Councilman Fawcett really has something on her mind that is what's going on. So anyway, I don't really have anything else to discuss if it's that important. So if we could have a motion to adjourn. Second.
Second.
Well, hey, really.